Hey guys, tonight we're slipping quietly into another time, another life, your life. You're not royalty, not nobility, not even part of the aspiring middle class. No, you're deep below the stairs in a house far grander than your own dreams will ever reach. The walls here are made of cold stone, the floor rough beneath your soles, the ceilings low, the lamps dim. You're waking up before the sun does, to a life not entirely your own. The sheets are coarse, the blanket scratchy, and your head is still fogged with dreams of fresh air, warm bread, or perhaps dancing. But the clang of the bell above jerks your eyes open. You're not allowed dreams, not really. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, I'd love to know, where are you listening from tonight? What's the time by your clock? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up underground, well, it might as well be. The servants' quarters are tucked far below the grand windows and warm hearths of the upstairs world. Down here, time begins before dawn, before the upstairs people have even rolled over in their goose-feathered beds. Your mattress is thin. You have 2 dresses to your name, one for working and one for maybe a funeral if you're allowed to go. You tuck your feet into the stiff leather boots by your bedside, wincing at how the leather never really gets soft, no matter how long you've owned them. The corridors are tight. Damp creeps up the walls like a silent visitor. You pass other servants in varying states of waking, some buttoning uniforms, others rubbing sleep from their eyes. No one speaks. You nod. That's enough. Talking this early is a luxury, and besides, you'll spend the whole day biting your tongue. Your morning task is to light the fires, not 110. You carry a scuttle full of coal, arms trembling with each step up the back stairs. Each hearth must be laid just right. Paper, kindling, coal, stacked with the precision of a chess master. The gentleman of the house cannot possibly awaken to a room colder than 5 degrees Fahrenheit. Heaven forbid. In the hallway the bellboard awaits. It's mounted high, out of easy reach, with brass bells each labelled with the name of a room: drawing room, morning room, nursery, master bedroom, guest bedroom number 2. They all dangle from tightly coiled wires. When one rings, the bell swings and the little card above it jiggles. If 2 bells ring at once, you're suddenly playing Edwardian whack-a-mole with teapots and slippers. You still smell like coal dust and sleep when the first bell chimes. Upstairs is awake. You don't know who yet, but you will. Historians still argue whether these bell systems were a marvel of service innovation or just a particularly cruel version of domestic surveillance. Either way, it's ringing now, and your day has truly begun. You scurry up the back staircase. One of the house rules? Never use the main stairs. That's for guests. You don't even breathe on those banisters. As you pass the pantry, you catch the scent of hot water and strong tea. Cook is already growling about the state of the bread delivery. You nod. Again. No time. Lady Marigold wants her window opened precisely 45 minutes after sunrise, and you're already 2 minutes behind. The windows are tall, nearly as tall as you, and the curtains are heavier than they look. You grunt softly as you pull them apart, careful not to let the ring hooks screech on the rail. That sound? Apparently, it offends her. Of course it does. You stand in her room as the pale morning light spills in. The room smells like rose water and indifference. Her slippers are neatly aligned beside her bed, just as you left them the night before. She will pretend she did that herself. A little-known fact: Edwardian bedrooms could easily house a family of 6, yet are occupied by 1 person, 2 chihuahuas, and 1,000 framed photos of long-dead relatives. Sometimes you wonder what it's like to live in all that space, to wake up and not have to move unless you feel like it. Your own room back downstairs fits only a bed and a chamber pot. Privacy is a myth. And warmth? Only when you steal close to the kitchen range, pretending to need a cloth you've already folded twice. You sneak one more glance at the sunlight stretching across the bedroom's velvet rug. Then you retreat silently, like a ghost if ghosts had to dust the doorknobs on their way out. You're barely down the back staircase when it starts. The bellboard clinks once, twice, then again in rapid succession. You glance up at the labels. Morning room, guest bedroom number 1. the nursery, all calling for attention at once, as if the house itself is waking up and demanding things through little brass mouths. You rush to the morning room first, where the gentleman of the house is known to throw a spectacular fit if his tea arrives more than 7 minutes late. Not 6, not 8, 7. He's timed it, more than once, for fun. So, you make haste through the servants' hall to the kitchen, where Cook is already shouting about the butter. Not to you, never to you. Cook yells in general, like thunder. Today, it's the milk being too thin, or too creamy. Honestly, you stopped keeping track. You grab the tea tray porcelain cups that chip if you breathe on them wrong, a sterling silver teapot that weighs as much as a newborn goat, and a matching sugar spoon which must always rest facing west on the saucer. Why west? No one knows. That's just how it's done. The hallway smells of wax polish and something faintly floral. As you pass through the green baize door, that thick, padded barrier separating the world of service from the world of the served, you immediately feel your spine straighten, your face settle into blank obedience. The morning room is warm, golden with the soft light of day filtering through lace curtains. The gentleman is already seated in his armchair, newspaper folded precisely in quarters. His expression is unreadable, which is somehow worse than outright contempt. You pour his tea in silence. He grunts. You assume it's approval. You back away like a servant ninja, heels quiet, fingers steady. You don't breathe again until the door is shut behind you. Then ding. Another bell. This time, guest bedroom number 1. That's Lady Featherstone, visiting from Bath. She always wants hot water and 2 lemon slices. Not 1, not 3. She counts. You fetch a copper jug from the scullery, fill it with boiling water from the range, and set it carefully onto a tray. The scullery smells like old cabbage, and ashes your nostrils sting as you cross it. The floor is perpetually damp, and your shoes make that awful sticky sound with each step. Now, tray in hand, you begin your second ascent of the morning. Edwardian homes were not made for ergonomic movement. They were made for showing off. High ceilings, endless hallways, staircases that spiral into the heavens, but only for the right people. Back upstairs, Lady Featherstone is peering out the window when you enter. She doesn't turn around. That's part of the game. Pretend you're not real. Pretend your presence doesn't need acknowledgement. Set it on the stand, she says, her voice like mothballs and judgment. You do as told. She inspects the lemon slices. One is thinner than the other. Her eyebrows knit, and for a heartbeat you think she might call the housekeeper. But no, she decides to let it pass today. Lucky you. Historians still argue whether this brand of micro-commanding aristocratic behavior was conscious power play or just deeply embedded class habit. Either way, your pulse doesn't slow down until you're 2 hallways away. On your way back, you pass by the bellboard again. It's twitching. Nursery bell this time. You sigh. The children are lovely in theory. Rosy cheeks, giggles, curls. But in practice, they throw things and scream when toast is too brown. The nursery is guarded by the nanny, who is technically one of you staff, but has a higher rank due to her close proximity to the family. She nods at you curtly as you enter, and tells you the youngest wet the bed. Again, you strip the linens, trying not to inhale the scent of sleep and small accidents. The mattress cover is thick and unyielding, and you wonder not for the first time how much longer your back will put up with this before something gives. Meanwhile, upstairs, someone else rings for fresh flowers, another for pressed napkins, another for a replacement pair of gloves, because apparently someone had the audacity to misplace the left one. You begin to feel like you're split into 12 pieces, each rushing to a different demand. You wish you could clone yourself, or, failing that, invent a time machine where you go back and decide to marry that stable boy who wanted to open a shop in Leeds. But here you are, carrying out tea, linens, towels, and the expectations of people who've never had to lace their own boots. You pass the butler in the main corridor. He doesn't look at you, but he nods. That's the closest thing to affection you're getting today. He's inspecting the candlesticks. They must be polished by lunch. You add it to your mental list. And all the while, the bellboard sings. You hear it even when you can't see it. A dull clink, a sharp ding, a low chime like a cowbell, for the invisible herd you're expected to shepherd. The system, you admit, is brilliant in its way. A central nervous system for a household that functions on illusion, comfort, wealth, elegance, all resting on the blistered feet and tired hands of servants like you. Just as you're finally headed downstairs for a sip of water ding, this time, it's the drawing room. You mutter something not quite profane under your breath, straighten your apron, and head back up again. The day is just beginning. You return to the scullery with aching arms, the drawing room tray now empty but still warm from the tea. There's no time to sit. No stool for you, anyway. You glance toward the uniform hook and remember it's laundry day. Your apron is smudged from coal dust, a bit of jam, and something mysterious you hope is marmalade. You strip it off quickly, replace it with the second one, which smells faintly of lye and damp cotton. The edges are fraying, but if you're careful how you fold it, no one important will notice. Uniforms are everything. Clean lines, crisp collars, no wrinkles, no shine from overwearing. Your dress has to hang just right, with sleeves ending exactly at the wrist bone. Your cap must sit neatly, not too far back, not too forward. Some footmen starch theirs stiff, like something out of a toy soldier's dream, but maids are supposed to look soft, reliable, not militant. Historians still argue whether the rigidity of servant uniforms was meant to encourage pride in appearance or simply reinforce status at every glance. One thing's certain. You never feel more invisible than when perfectly dressed. Buttons are a pain. You've mended yours twice this month already. No budget for new dresses. You use black thread on everything. Not ideal, but no one inspects a scullery maid's cuffs too closely unless they're in a mood. Behind the pantry door, you hear the housekeeper's heels. Tap, tap, tap. That sound alone sends half the junior staff scrambling to look busy. You grab a dry rag and start polishing a candlestick you already cleaned yesterday. The housekeeper enters like a shadow cast by order itself. Her hair is pulled tighter than a drum. Her ledger under one arm, she surveys you with that slight upward nod, barely acknowledgement. You're doing fine. For now. Don't forget to switch out the hallway vase by noon, she says, as if it's the most natural task in the world. That vase is 5 feet tall, and full of water, and tulips taller than a toddler. But of course you'll do it. She disappears without waiting for a reply. You exhale through your nose. You're not sure when it started, but somewhere along the way you stop speaking in full sentences during your shifts. Nods, curtsies, quick yes ma'am glances, they've become your entire vocabulary. You check your reflection quickly in the hallway mirror. It's the only one you're technically allowed to use. Servants weren't supposed to linger at mirrors. Vanity was for the upstairs folk. You tug your cap forward and wipe a smudge of soot from your cheek. Back in the linen room, 2 of the undermaids are folding pillowcases into squares so sharp they could be used as weapons. You join them silently. Fold, stack, fold, stack. The rhythm is almost hypnotic. One of them leans over and whispers, "Cook through a spoon again." You blink. Silver or wooden? Wooden. But she missed. You nod, and that's enough gossip for now. The laundry rota is posted near the back stairs. You're not assigned the heavy washing today, thank the saints, but you are tasked with gathering the uniforms for second pressing. That means trekking down into the laundry cellar. You brace yourself for the heat. The air grows heavier with each step below ground. It's as if the building itself presses in on you. Down here, fires burn constantly beneath copper-boiling pots, churning with grey steam and the scent of soap, sweat, and something vaguely sour. The laundry maid gives you a grin, crooked teeth, kind eyes. She's already elbow-deep in lye. Collars in the bin, mind the bleach. You do. One misstep, and your sleeves will look like ghost arms by morning. You carry the stiff uniforms out and hang them on the line, stretched along the corridor wall, checking each for scorch marks or wrinkles that might offend the upstairs aesthetic. You overhear the butler barking instructions nearby. He's coordinating for a luncheon a surprise guest from the Foreign Office. The silver must be extra polished, the napkins folded swan style. You add it to the long mental scroll of your duties. As you leave the laundry, you pass by a young kitchen boy, muttering to himself while peeling potatoes. He's barely 12, arms too skinny for the knife he's wielding. He smiles as you go by. That kind of thing could get him scolded, but it makes you smile too. A quirky, but true detail. Some Edwardian households insisted their male servants grow mustaches to appear more mature and respectable to guests. So yes, you've seen a 15-year-old footman with a pencil-thin line of fluff on his lip and a tragic sense of purpose in his stride. Back upstairs, you finally retrieve the hallway vase. It's massive. You carry it as if it were made of solid regret, water sloshing dangerously. A single drop lands on the Persian rug. You panic, dab it with your apron, and pray it dries before anyone sees. The tulips are fresh, but Lady Featherstone dislikes orange flowers, so you remove two and tilt the arrangement to look more intentional, as she calls it. You hate that you've started using their phrases in your own head. The uniform clings to your skin now, damp from effort. You feel the itch of starch at your neck, the press of your cap against your scalp. You miss your old boots, the soft ones your mother gave you before you left home. But they weren't uniform, and they squeaked. And heaven knows, you cannot squeak in this house. As you walk back toward the scullery, bells ring again. But this time, you ignore them. Just for 10 steps. You give yourself those 10 steps. 10 whole paces where you pretend the bellboard doesn't exist. Each footfall is a tiny act of rebellion. 1, 2, 3, until step 10, when guilt catches up like a well-trained hound. The chime is still ringing, insistent now, like a hungry child tugging at your apron. You glance up drawing room again. That means it's probably Lady Marigold, likely requesting something trivial like the daytime shawl, not to be confused with the afternoon shawl, and heavens, don't you dare mix them up. One is paisley, the other floral, and the offence would be eternal. The staircase feels steeper than usual. Or maybe it's just you. Your knees ache. Not like they used to now, they creak softly with every rise, like old floorboards announcing a ghost. When you arrive, the room smells like violets and dry books. Lady Marigold is lounging in a chair that could seat 4, but cradles her like a throne. She doesn't look at you, just gestures vaguely at the arm of the settee. There. I dropped my needle. Again. You bend low, searching among the patterned rugs that make your eyes blur. Of course, the needle is silver and blends perfectly into the embroidered chaos. You find it barely prick your finger and say nothing. "Oh, good," she murmurs. "And I suppose I'll take my shawl now. Embra." You already brought it. You anticipated her. It's on your arm. She hadn't noticed. Of course she hadn't. Historians still argue whether the women of the Edwardian elite were as helpless as they behaved, or simply performing the elaborate dance expected of them. You suspect it's both an exhausting ballet of velvet and size, choreographed by generations of expectation. You drape the shawl gently over her shoulders and step back. She doesn't thank you. They never do. But then, you don't need gratitude, you need your wages. Speaking of which, payday is still a week away, and you've already run out of pins for your hair. You've been reusing 2 bent ones for 3 days now, and they hurt like the devil, but it's either that or let your hair fall, which is absolutely not allowed. You retreat from the drawing room with your finger still stinging from the needle. You don't dare suck it clean, not in view. Upstairs behaviour must never be tainted by bodily needs. Back in the hallway, you spot the footman James. He's practicing the art of walking soundlessly. He's good at it. He glides more than walks, like a cat that got into the butter. His livery is spotless, pressed so sharp you could slice bread with his cuffs. "Guest arriving at 2?" he whispers to you as he passes. "Diplomatic sort. Fancy waistcoat." You nod. "Another surprise guest?" That means a whole new place setting, the special china, and polishing that monstrous candelabra in the dining room. You feel your shoulders drop a little. You turn toward the silver pantry, a room that smells like old coins and ambition. The butler stands there already, inspecting a soup ladle with the reverence of a man cradling an heirloom. 3 extra spoons per guest, he says, not looking at you. Polish everything. Of course, everything, including the fish knives no one ever uses, and that ridiculous grape spoon. Yes, there's a spoon for grapes. You learn that your first week, when you accidentally laid it where the mustard spoon should have gone, the consequences were memorable. You fetch a cloth and the tin of polish. Begin at the forks, work your way down. Each piece must glint like the morning sun, or risk the wrath of the butler's eyebrows, which are surprisingly expressive for a man who speaks once a week. A curious tidbit for you. Some Edwardian households went so far as to number their silver. Not just inventory numbers, engraved ones, hidden in crevices. That way, if a spoon went missing, they could trace it. Imagine the embarrassment of being caught with spoon number 47 in your apron pocket. Not theft, just carelessness, but enough to get you dismissed. You finish polishing one tray, then another. Your fingertips are already raw from the constant pressure and chemicals, but you keep going. Muscle memory now. You barely register your own breath. Eventually, your stomach growls, loudly. You glance at the clock in the corner. Nearly 11. That means it's almost time for staff tea, a half-hour break when you're allowed to eat something, assuming you can grab a seat. Downstairs, the long wooden table is already half occupied. The younger maid, Beatrice, is slicing stale bread like she's angry at it. Cook is nowhere to be seen, thank heaven. Someone's left a pot of tea, lukewarm but drinkable. You pour yourself a chipped cup, sit quickly, and inhale 2 bites of bread before anyone can call you away. The silence is broken only by chewing and the occasional sigh. No one speaks at these breaks unless they must. You all know the same truth. 30 minutes of quiet is more precious than gold. Across from you, the kitchen boy sneaks a second helping of jam. You raise an eyebrow. He shrugs, mouth full. You smile behind your cup. Historians often debate the emotional culture of the servant class, whether camaraderie truly existed or was just born of shared misery. From where you're sitting, it's both. You don't love each other, but you understand each other. And sometimes, that's better. You finish your tea. The cup rattles as you place it down. That's the sign. Breaks over. You rise with the others, muscles stiff from sitting even briefly. Your feet scream in protest, but you hush them with the promise of sitting again maybe in 6 hours. Then, just as you're stepping into the corridor, the bell rings. And you're moving again. The bell chimes again, dining room this time. That means the table's being set for the luncheon guest, the one in the fancy waistcoat, as James the footman said. The clink of that bell sounds no different from any other, but your body reacts as if it's uniquely demanding. And in a way, it is. Some rooms expect more perfection than others. You head toward the dining room with a quickening pace. The floor beneath your feet changes as you go, stone in the back corridor, then polished wood with a faint, pleasant creak. You've walked it so often that each surface feels like a different chapter in your day. Inside the dining room, sunlight spills across a long mahogany table, polished so thoroughly it reflects the chandelier. The place settings have already begun. Starched napkins, bone china plates, and 6 separate forks, because apparently it takes that many to navigate a meal. You help lay the final silverware, mindful of spacing. Exactly 1 inch between each utensil. The plates must align perfectly with the edge of the table. The wine glasses are to be arranged in a gentle diagonal, large to small. You didn't invent this system, you inherited it like an ancient curse. A peculiar fact: Edwardian households often employed tableau dining, a kind of visual symmetry that made the meal a display as much as a service. The guests ate slowly, performed casual conversation, and admired how evenly their asparagus spears were aligned. You move quietly, efficiently, but not too quickly. Servants aren't supposed to look rushed. Rushing suggests chaos. Chaos is vulgar. You smile blandly as you adjust the grape spoon again. The butler glides in behind you and surveys the table. "Wine decanter's tilted," he says. You adjust it by 3 degrees. He grunts a sound of reluctant approval. Then, suddenly, disaster. One of the junior maids bumps a tray near the sideboard. A small spoon, blessedly not numbered, clatters to the floor. The sound echoes like a cannon. Everyone freezes. The butler raises an eyebrow. "Replace it." Quietly. The maid nods, face pale, and retrieves a clean one from the pantry. No lecture this time. But the room has tightened, like a thread pulled taut. Historians still argue whether the tension in these formal service scenarios was more about class performance or raw fear of job loss. You'd argue it's both, especially when silver hits the floor. Once the setting is complete, you check the candles. These aren't for light, they're for ambiance, even in the daylight. Guests expect atmosphere, as if roast beef tastes better with flickering wax nearby. You're dismissed just before the guests arrive, but not before you glimpse the visitor through the drawing room archway. Fancy waistcoat, indeed navy blue, embroidered with something suspiciously shiny, possibly a medal, possibly a conversation starter. You slip out unseen. That's your job, after all, to vanish when your presence is no longer needed. The good servant is a ghost, visible when summoned, invisible when dismissed. On your way down to the scullery, you detour briefly to the back hallway, where the laundry maid has hung a line of freshly pressed napkins. You touch one, still warm from the iron. You envy its stillness. You reach the scullery just in time for your next task, polishing the brass doorknobs. There are 14 of them on this floor alone. Each must gleam like morning dew or face the scrutiny of the housekeeper's gaze. You settle into a crouch, rag in hand, when Beatrice passes by with a mop. She glances at your knees. "Already ruined the hem?" she asks quietly. "Second apron," you murmur back. She nods. "Smart. That's the entire conversation. It's the most human moment you'll have for another hour." A curious quirk. Some Edwardian households kept detailed charts of how long each task should take. Polishing a doorknob? 5 minutes. Dusting a chandelier? 20. Any longer, and you were either lazy or incompetent, or both. You finish the last knob just as the luncheon ends. Plates come rattling down to the kitchen like falling stars. The guests are gone. Conversation has ceased. Now it's time for cleaning. The plates are scraped, the bones discarded, the cloth napkins collected and sorted by stain severity. You're back on dish rotation. The water is scalding, as usual. The soap stings the cuts on your hands. You wince once, then forget it. The kitchen boy drops a fork into the sink beside you, splashing hot water up your sleeve. "Sorry," he mumbles. You don't reply. You're too tired. You keep scrubbing. The china is delicate, painted with absurdly tiny violets. You wonder if anyone even noticed. You hope not, because if they did, they'll ask for it again. And it's a nightmare to clean. There's a moment, just one, when you pause. Set the sponge down, breathe. You look around. The walls are yellowed with steam. The kettle screams softly in the background. The floor is damp, your back aches, and someone upstairs is already pulling the bell again. But in this small space, surrounded by chipped plates and swirling suds, you allow yourself the tiniest smile. Because even in this life of endless motion, even in this corset of routine and order, you've managed to survive another luncheon. And the next bell? That can wait a second longer. The bell doesn't wait, of course. It rarely does. This time, it's the blue parlour. You glance at the label on the board just to confirm, even though you already know the rhythm of its ring. Each room has its own unique clang, like a calling card, and you've learned them all. The blue parlour's bell has a sharp little kick at the end, as if it's personally offended you haven't answered yet. You dry your hands on your apron and begin the walk upstairs, shoes still slightly squishy from dishwater. As you move through the hallway, you remember the rule. No lingering, no sighing, no rubbing your eyes, even if they sting. Once again, you pass through the green baize door, the line between their world and yours. It doesn't creak. It never does. It's been so well maintained it opens and closes like breath, or judgment. Inside the blue parlour, the air smells of lavender polish and old velvet. The windows are open just a crack to let in the July breeze, and the lace curtains dance faintly in the light. Lady Araminta, one of the older aunts, sits near the fireplace reading something vaguely religious and vaguely suspicious. She looks up at you. "Too drafty. Close the windows." You do, one by one. There are 4 in this room alone. The latches are fussy, and one sticks. You wrestle with it in silence, aware that she's watching you with mild, disinterested disappointment. "Honestly," she mutters, "in my day, maids didn't fuss with windows. They just closed them." You resist the urge to tell her it's still technically your day. Instead, you give a polite nod and finish your task. You step back. You wait. She waves you off with a flick of her hand. You vanish. Historians still argue whether the class divide in Edwardian Britain was sustained more by economics or by deeply coded rituals like this silent window wars and curt dismissals that reinforced who mattered and who didn't. From where you're standing, it's not much of a mystery. Back downstairs, it's time for dusting. The upper hallways, the picture rails, the awkward little figurines shaped like dogs with human faces. You never understood those. They're supposed to be endearing. They're not. You dust lightly, not too hard. Don't dislodge anything. Don't leave a trail. Move like air with a rag. You pass the footman again, James, with his gloved hands folded behind his back. His coat is fitted, his hair slicked. He nods slightly. "Did you hear?" he whispers. "Lord Thistlewood's valet got the sack." You pause mid-dust. "Why?" "Wrinkled waistcoat. Twice. Twice. That's all it takes." You return to your task with a little more tension in your shoulders. Wrinkles. Imagine. Not theft. Not insubordination. Fabric creases. You move to the banister. Dust gathers there no matter how often you wipe it. And the children love to leave sticky fingerprints on the railings. You wonder what jam it was today. Strawberry, probably. They seem like strawberry children. You descend the stairs slowly, feeling the ache creep back into your knees. The floor below smells of beeswax, polish and boiled cabbage, an unpleasant combination that oddly signals home. A curious tidbit you heard once from the second footman. Some wealthy Edwardians had banister etiquette. Guests weren't supposed to touch them with bare hands, only gloved ones. The staff, of course, wiped them barehanded. The irony is not lost on you. You finish dusting the main stair and check your reflection in the hallway mirror again. A bit of hair has slipped free of your cap. You tuck it back with a practiced flick, careful not to leave a fingerprint on the glass. You head toward the servants' hall. There's a note pinned to the board. Inventory night moved to Friday. You groan softly. Inventory night means counting the most absurd things. Teaspoons, hat pins, curtain tassels. One time you counted every porcelain frog in Lady Featherstone's collection. There were 47. You enter the storage room briefly to fetch a clean rag. The room is dark, lined with shelves, and lit by one single, flickering bulb that makes everything feel slightly haunted. You pass the wine cellar on your way back. The door's locked, as always. Only the butler has the key. Inside are racks of wine bottles labelled in careful script wines that cost more than a month of your wages. You once caught a glimpse of a French vintage from 1848. The label alone looked smug. A servant's role is to move among these luxuries like a ghost, to touch without feeling, to handle without desiring. You've gotten good at it. Back in the hallway, you catch a whisper of music. Someone upstairs is practicing piano again. The sound drifts down the staircase like smoke soft, hesitant notes followed by a harsh chord and a sigh. You pause. Just for a second. It's a Chopin etude, not one of the popular ones. Someone has ambition, but the moment is broken by another bell. The bellboard blinks again, the wires twitching. This time it's the morning room again. Likely just tea, or a fresh cushion, or a newspaper held the wrong way. Your apron is wrinkled now. Your hands are dry. But you straighten your back and make for the kitchen to fetch whatever absurdity is needed next. Because in this house, service never stops. Not for rain, not for aching knees, not for a servant's brief stolen glance at sunlight through a window, and certainly not for Chopin. You step into the kitchen, and the wave of heat nearly knocks you back. It's always hot in here, even in winter, but in summer, dear heavens, the range throws off a heavy, constant warmth that clings to every surface and every breath. You blink through the haze and catch Cook, red-faced and victorious, wrestling with a pheasant. The poor bird lies on the cutting board, half plucked and already being seasoned with a mixture that smells like rosemary and vengeance. Cook doesn't look up. Morning room wants tea again, you say. She gestures wordlessly toward the sideboard, where the teapot waits like a soldier ready for deployment. You assemble the tray without asking tea, 2 biscuits, lemon slices because they might be wanted, and the ridiculous long-handled spoon no one ever uses. The china rattles slightly as you walk. Not from clumsiness, your hands are steady, but from sheer exhaustion. The tray isn't heavy. Not really. But your muscles are soft stones now, worn down by hours of climbing stairs and dodging expectations. You pass through the green baize door again, and this time it feels like you're crossing into a dream. The morning room is filled with afternoon light now, golden and dappled through the trees. Lady Marigold is frowning at a magazine while the gentleman lounges nearby with a cigar. He does not look at you. She does. You're late, she says, though you aren't. You set the tray down gently. Sugar cubes click in their dish. Tea pours like silk. She continues to glare until you adjust the teacup by a quarter inch. Then she smiles faintly, as if you've passed some unspoken test. You leave without being dismissed. That's dangerous, technically. But lingering is worse. Historians still argue whether this subtle system of power, the invisible rules of gesture, gaze, and silence, was more effective than outright commands. But you live it. And you know, nothing is ever said aloud. It's all implication. And you must read it perfectly, or risk everything. Back downstairs, you allow yourself a breath by the servant's entrance. The door is cracked open to let in a breeze. You lean into it, just slightly. The outside smells like cut grass and horses. You haven't had fresh air in hours. The scullery maid appears beside you, hands red from dishwater. They're having pheasant tonight, she says. I saw. They always chew it like it's chicken. Waste of good bird. Oh. You both smile. It's not quite funny, but it's something. She glances behind her. Cook's in a mood. She's always in a mood. Yes, but now she's got the carving knife. You nod. You've seen Cook throw cutlery before. She has astonishing aim. You leave the doorway and descend back into the quiet underworld of the house. It's time to collect the linen for the bedrooms. Fresh sheets, newly pressed pillowcases, those absurd decorative cushions that serve no purpose but must be fluffed precisely. Every room is a stage, and you're the invisible stagehand resetting the scene before the next act. You push the linen trolley, its wheels squeaking in protest, down the long corridor. The scent of starch and lavender floats around you. Someone has overused the laundry soap again, it's choking, but not unpleasant. The first room is the guest bedroom. No one is staying there tonight, but that doesn't matter. The bed must be changed daily, just in case some cousin of a cousin decides to visit unannounced. The sheets are crisp, almost hostile. You stretch them across the mattress, corners tucked tight enough to bounce a coin. The pillows are fluffed again, rotated, patted into submission. You step back and inspect the results. It looks untouched. That's the goal. In the hallway, the second footman is polishing the woodwork with exaggerated grace. He catches your eye. You doing the drawing room next? He asks. You nod. He groans. Careful. Lady Featherstone spilled Madeira and blames the chair. You groan in return. Madeira stains are nightmares, worse when you're not the one who caused it. The drawing room is quiet when you enter. The light is lower here, filtered through heavy curtains drawn against the afternoon glare. You spot the stain instantly, a dark blotch on the armrest of a floral chair that's been sat in by generations of bored nobility. You dab at it gently with a cloth soaked in white vinegar and pray no one walks in. A curious tidbit you once heard from the gardener. In some households, stains were named after the person who caused them. There's a chair in the library still known as Uncle Percy's disaster. You're not sure what happened, but you've been told never to sit in it. You finish the blotting, fluff the cushions, and run your hands along the mantelpiece to check for dust. There's none. Not because it was clean, but because you've already cleaned it 3 times this week. Then, just as you're turning to leave, a quiet voice behind you. Is that you, Mary? You freeze. It's Lady Featherstone. Yes, ma'am. Would you fetch me my knitting? It's in the basket by the piano. You do. She accepts it without a word and begins looping yarn slowly through her fingers. You stand there, awkwardly. Not sure if you should go. She speaks again. You remind me of a girl I knew once. Quiet, good hands, married a lawyer. You don't know what to say. So you nod. She had bad knees, too. Your nod slows. She gestures lightly. You may go. Back downstairs, you finally allow yourself a breath. Not because she was kind, she wasn't, but because she was almost something else. Almost gentle. Almost curious. Almost human. Almost, but not quite. You retreat from the drawing room with that peculiar weight in your chest. Not fear, not quite fatigue, just the strain of being seen, and still not really seen. Lady Featherstone's comment lingers in your mind. Quiet, good hands, as though you're a shadow with wrists. Downstairs, you pause at the butler's pantry. Not because you need anything, but because it's the only room in the house that's usually empty at this hour. A cool breath of stillness. Dark wood shelves line the walls, gleaming with polish. Every glass decanter has its place. The air smells faintly of lemon oil and control. You run your fingers along a drawer handle, then stop yourself. If the butler catches you touching anything, you'll get the eyebrow. Just the one. That arched, disapproving crescent that feels worse than a shout. Instead, you head toward the butler himself. You can hear him from across the corridor. Before you see him, his voice low, calm, exact. He's giving the footmen their afternoon assignments. You hover at a respectful distance until he finishes. Then he turns to you with that blank expression of his. Not cold, just precise. The family has requested port and Madeira before supper. Prepare the sideboard, and please remember, port on the left, Madeira on the right. Labels forward. Of course, labels forward, like they're posing for a photograph. You nod and begin your task. The wine bottles are heavy and expensive. You polish the necks with a soft cloth, careful not to leave fingerprints. The crystal decanters must be spotless. One smudge, and it's whispered about for days. Historians still debate whether the Edwardian butler was truly the master of the servants, or just the most dignified cog in a very elaborate machine. From where you're standing, the butler is both commander and prisoner, just with better waistcoats. As you work, the door creaks open. A small boy peeks in one of the upstairs children, the youngest. He's not supposed to be here. He tiptoes closer, eyes wide. Are you the wine lady? You blink. Number, I just help with it. He leans in conspiratorially. Mummy says wine is for bores. You smile despite yourself. Then I suppose I'm very boring. He laughs and runs out before you can say another word. Children are strange. Some are curious, some cruel. Some, like that boy, blur the lines. They live upstairs but don't always understand what that means. Not yet. Once the sideboard is finished, you step back and inspect your work. Every bottle aligned, every decanter gleaming. It's beautiful, in a way. You've learned to appreciate symmetry like others appreciate music. You check the clock. Nearly 5. That means time to lay out the evening clothes for the lady of the house. You move to her dressing room, a plush, perfumed chamber the size of your entire servants' quarters. Her gowns are hung in rows by colour, season, and occasion. Her jewellery is arranged in drawers lined with velvet. Her shoes dozens glint beneath the mirrored cabinets. You select a gown of mauve silk with lace trim. It rustles softly as you lay it on the bed. Next, the matching gloves, shawl, and that tiny handbag she insists on using even though it holds nothing but a handkerchief and an air of disapproval. Being a lady's maid is part stylist, part psychic. You must anticipate her whims, her tastes, her complaints. She wants to be surprised, but only by what she would have chosen herself. You run a lint brush over the gown and shake the gloves out. They smell faintly of violets and starch. Everything does. You hear her footsteps approaching soft but firm. She enters the room in a dressing robe, hair pinned messily but intentionally so. Is this tonight's choice? She asks. Yes, ma'am. She considers it. A moment passes. Then she nods. Well done, Mary. It's the first time she's said your name all week. You help her into the gown without comment. You tighten her corset laces not too tight today, thank heaven, and adjust the neckline. Her skin is pale and perfumed, her expression unreadable. As you place the final hairpin, she speaks again. My sister says her maid talks too much. I'm glad you don't. You offer the faintest smile. She doesn't see it. She's already looking in the mirror. You excuse yourself quietly. Close the door behind you. In the hallway, you pause. That strange moment again seen, but not. A name used, a compliment offered like crumbs to a bird. Gratitude? Maybe. But also ownership. The way she says, my maid, like she's talking about a good pair of gloves. Still, it's better than nothing. Back downstairs, you join Beatrice in folding the supper napkins, the ones with the embroidery that always seems to snag your dry fingers. You both sit on wooden stools, backs straight, folding. Nice dress tonight, Beatrice says. Mauve, you reply. She hums. She likes mauve, always looks smug in mauve. You both chuckle quietly, of course. A curious historical note. Edwardian fashion was obsessed with mauve after the discovery of aniline dye. It was the it colour of the upper crust, a sort of wearable announcement of wealth. And servants, naturally, had to care for it without ever wearing it. You finish the napkins, stack them perfectly, each corner crisp, each fold symmetrical. The bells are quiet for now. Supper is beginning upstairs. Your world goes still. And for a breath or two you sit, not working, not walking, just sitting. And in this strange, rare silence, you allow yourself to imagine something impossible, a life without bells. The silence doesn't last. It never does. The bellboard flickers again, and though the bell itself is silent in the servants' hall, the motion catches your eye like lightning in a storm. You're already rising before you register which room is calling. Dining room. Of course. Supper is well underway now. That means more wine, a forgotten spoon, or most often a stain. You head toward the butler's pantry where James the footman is carefully balancing a tray of champagne flutes. He nods when he sees you, eyebrows raised in commiseration. Careful. Someone dropped a tomato on the carpet. You sigh. Please tell me it wasn't Lady Featherstone. It was. You both wince. Carpet stains are the true enemies of peace, especially during supper, when the lighting is soft and forgiving to faces but brutal to spills. You enter the dining room, with your eyes low, hands folded. The room smells of roast duck, claret and authority. The family speaks in low tones, their voices dripping with polite boredom. You spot the stain immediately red, vivid, mocking just beneath the gentleman's side of the table, likely flicked from a fork during some impassioned defense of fencing or tariffs. The butler gives you a single, barely perceptible nod. That's all the permission you'll get. You crouch beside the chair, discreet as possible, and begin dabbing at the fabric with a vinegar solution hidden in a dainty little spray bottle. You've done this before, many times. The trick is to act like you're not there at all. Lady Marigold pauses her sentence. "Ah, Mary's here," she says lightly. Marvellous hands. Very quiet. The gentleman chuckles. If only our governess were as silent. Polite laughter. Yours not included. You finish with the stain, stand and vanish again, no thanks given, no words spoken. Historians still argue whether the anonymity of servants served the comfort of the elite or simply reflected the fear of intimacy across class lines. You don't need an academic journal to know. It's both. You're valued for your invisibility. Back in the scullery, Beatrice is elbow-deep in dishwater, humming a sad little tune that might be a hymn or might just be the melody of exhaustion. You join her without speaking, grabbing a stack of plates still warm from use. The kitchen is alive with motion. Cook yells for salt. The kitchen boy nearly drops a pot of peas. Someone else curses under their breath as gravy boils over. The dishes clink, clatter, rinse, repeat. The smell of soap and duck fat battles for dominance. Your hands ache again, but there's a rhythm to it now. A lullaby of labour. You catch Beatrice smiling at the ceiling. "Remember the storm last week?" she asks. You nod. "When it thundered so loud it rattled the silver cupboard." You smile too. "Lady Featherstone said it was indecent." Beatrice laughs. As if the sky had manners. The two of you work side by side, sharing the comfort of shared memory. You may not have freedom, but you have familiarity. It's a strange kind of wealth. A quirky little fact. Edwardian kitchens often kept cats, not as pets, but as formal staff. Some even had names on the household registry. Mouses, they were called. You're fairly sure the tabby that haunts the scullery is one such employee. She sits watching you now, tail flicking in judgment. You finish the last plate, dry your hands, and glance at the clock. 7:40. Nearly time to prepare the drawing rooms for the evening wind-down. That means clearing away newspapers, restocking the coals, refolding shawls the ladies may or may not use. You head upstairs again, stepping carefully along the carpet runner. The hallway is lit by gas sconces, casting warm pools of light. The air smells of tobacco and polished wood. You enter the blue parlour first. The fire's still going, but it's low. You stoke it gently, adding a few pieces of coal just so. The crackle is soothing, almost enough to make you pause. But you don't. You collect empty teacups and saucers. There's a discarded slipper near the footstool. You return it to its rightful spot beside the armchair. In the corner sits a forgotten embroidery hoop. You don't touch it. That's the ladies' territory. You've learned that lesson. The drawing room is next. Music trickles from the gramophone's soft, tinny piano. No one's in here now, but the room must still be presentable. Cushions are fluffed, doilies recentered. That ridiculous figurine of a bulldog in a top hat is returned to its precise angle on the mantel. You pause a moment. The music is old, but familiar. A waltz, maybe. You sway once just slightly, then remember yourself. Back downstairs, you catch sight of the wine glasses being dried by James. Think they noticed the stain? You ask. He shrugs. If they did, they'll forget by breakfast. You nod. That's the thing about this job. Nothing lingers except in your body. The pain in your feet, the cut on your knuckle, the bruise from bumping into the linen cupboard door. The memories, good or bad, don't belong to the house. They belong to you. Still, there's a strange satisfaction in knowing you've made the night seamless. The room glowed, the fire danced, the cushions aligned. To them, it was effortless. To you, it was everything. The bells are still now. Supper is finished, the wine has been drunk, and the conversation upstairs has dissolved into the low hum of drawing room music and mumbled gossip. This is the quietest part of your shift, not because the work stops, but because the family finally does. You gather your supplies for the last upstairs rounds. A fresh coal scuttle, a polishing cloth for the stair rails, and a folded linen in case someone accidentally spills port onto a side table again. You climb the stairs slowly, one step at a time. Each stair is slightly uneven, worn smooth by decades of servants' feet. Feet like yours that never rest for long. The banister glows under the gaslight, freshly dusted, yet you give it one more swipe with the cloth anyway. It's not about dirt, it's about impression. You check the morning room first. It's empty now, the scent of cigars clinging to the air. One ashtray still smoulders slightly. You empty it into the brass bin, open the window just enough to freshen the air, then shut it again. Always exactly 1 inch, no more, no less. A small fact. The average Edwardian drawing room had at least 3 ashtrays, even in households where no one smoked. It was a sign of preparedness, a status symbol disguised as common courtesy. You've cleaned every one of them. Next is the library. Books line every wall, thousands of them, each one dusted weekly, whether it's touched or not. You run your hand over the spines as you pass vellum, leather, cloth-bound. One volume sits askew. You fix it. Then, the fireplace. Cold. Unused today. Still, the brass grate must be shined, and the coals reset just so. The poker handle has a tiny chip in it, shaped like a crescent moon. You always notice it. No one else does. Historians still argue whether the intense attention to detail in Edwardian servant work created discipline or simply crushed individuality. You suspect it did both. You've become obsessive about tiny things, creases, streaks, alignment, not because they matter to you, but because they must matter to someone else. As you leave the library, you pass by the grandfather clock in the hall. Its ticking is slow, solemn, as if marking not time but submission. You glance at the face. Just past 8. Back in the servants' corridor, you're summoned briefly to the kitchen not by a bell this time, but by the smell. Cook has prepared the leftovers. Supper for the staff. It's not grand, but it's hot roast drippings over cold potatoes, with bits of onion and a sliver of yesterday's pudding. You eat quickly, quietly, with the others. Around the table, no one speaks above a murmur. The cook grumbles something about the pheasant being underappreciated. The scullery boy yawns mid-spoonful. Beatrice keeps fidgeting with her apron ties. There's something comforting about this silence. It's not the hush of fear, it's the weariness of people who've done everything, asked of them, and 100 things that weren't. You finish your plate, rinse it yourself, and set it aside. You're not technically on dish duty tonight, but the rhythm of rinsing feels grounding. You glance up at the bellboard. Still quiet. You wonder briefly what it would feel like to spend an evening not waiting for that sound. You're not done, of course. Not yet. The bed turn-down hour has begun. You gather the linen basket and begin the upstairs trek again. Lady Marigold's room is first. She likes her sheets warmed, her pillows fluffed precisely twice, and her water glass refilled exactly halfway. No more, no less. You light the small bedside lamp, close the curtains, smooth the coverlet, you adjust the fringe on her dressing chair. Then you wait. She enters without a glance. You curtsy. She says nothing. Then, "The flowers are wilting. Please speak with the gardener." You nod. The lilies are 2 days old. You knew they were fading. You'd hoped she wouldn't notice. But she always does. Next is Lady Featherstone. She's already in her nightgown, brushing her hair in long, theatrical strokes. You fluff her pillows and fold back the duvet. She eyes you through the mirror. "You've got good posture," she says. You pause. "Thank you, ma'am. I had a maid once who stooped. It was so unpleasant to look at." You nod, unsure whether that was a compliment or a warning. She waves a hand. You vanish. The final room is the nursery. The children are asleep or pretending to be. You fold back their covers, check the windows, adjust the curtains to block the street lamp's glare. One child stirs and murmurs something about dragons. You smile and tuck the blanket under his chin. In this moment, the house feels softer. Not gentler, just quieter. As if it's holding its breath. A fringe detail. Some Edwardian nurseries had 2 clocks, one for telling time, and one kept deliberately fast, to ensure punctuality for meals and nap times. This one only has 1, but it ticks loud enough for 2. You step into the hallway and let your shoulders drop just a little. For 5 seconds, no one is asking anything of you. Then, of course, the bell rings. Blue parlour. You sigh. Pick up your skirt and walk. The blue parlour again. It always seems to beckon just as you think your day is winding down, like a final test of your patience, posture, and pulse. You move through the hallways without sound, the soles of your shoes worn just right to soften every step. Inside, the lighting is low, glowing like candlelight, though it comes from gas sconces. The room smells faintly of lavender polish and powdered wigs. Lady Araminta must still be up, and she is, sitting stiffly in a high-backed chair near the hearth, a lace shawl draped across her shoulders like the wings of a pale moth. A book rests on her lap, closed but still being clutched, as if she's only pretending to read. She doesn't look up. "I require my reading spectacles," she says. You glance at the small table beside her, not there, nor in the tray by the chaise. You scan the room silently. There, under the window, a dainty chain glints in the fading light. You retrieve them quickly, place them into her outstretched hand, with the kind of reverence one might offer a holy relic. She accepts them without thanks. She never says thank you. Instead, she murmurs, "Have the lilies been replaced?" "Tomorrow, ma'am." She sniffs, as if that were not quite acceptable. Historians still argue whether the ritualistic nature of Edwardian upper-class routines brought order or just illusion. You think it's the latter order, only for those who could afford to invent it. You turn to leave, but her voice stops you. "Do you read?" You freeze. The question hangs like mist. "Yes, ma'am," you reply softly. She adjusts her shawl. "My last maid did not. Thought poetry was nonsense." You wonder for a split second whether this is the start of a conversation. But no, she opens her book and begins reading aloud, slowly, as if to herself. You leave quietly. The door doesn't creak. It never does. Back in the corridor, you exhale. You return to the servants' quarters to change linens once more. Even the rooms that haven't been used must appear freshly tended. Impression is everything. You replace hand towels that are untouched, fluff cushions that haven't been sat on, and brush the fireplace grates even when they've seen no fire. There's a kind of madness to it. But you know the rules. In the hall, the housekeeper appears. Her bun is still perfect, her ledger in hand. "You've not forgotten the drawing-room shutters?" she asks. You haven't. You were just going there. But you nod all the same. "Yes, ma'am." You know better than to contradict the housekeeper, even gently. She wields memory like a sword. She never forgets an error. A curious tidbit. In some grand households, the housekeeper's salary exceeded that of the cook, and even the valet. She held the keys. Literally. Her ring of keys clinks as she passes. every door under her control. You make your way to the drawing room and close the shutters, one by one. They fold in with a gentle groan, locking out the night. The room is still. Books lie half-read. A silk throw droops from the back of the settee. The smell of pipe tobacco lingers like a whisper. You glance once more at the chessboard in the corner. Still mid-game. Likely staged that way to suggest lively intellect, though no one's moved a piece in 3 months. You dim the gaslights and step out. The hallways are quieter now, lit only by sconces flickering gently. The portraits on the walls, rows of ancestors, with stern expressions, watch you with eternal judgment. Or maybe boredom. You can never tell. Back downstairs, Beatrice is folding laundry. Again. They're asking for hot bricks, she says. You sigh. The bed-warming bricks. Heavy, ceramic and finicky. You go to the warm cupboard and fetch 3. 1 for Lady Marigold, 1 for the guest room, and 1 for the nursery. You wrap each in flannel and carry them upstairs, the heat seeping through the cloth into your palms. It feels good, even if fleeting. You tuck the bricks carefully into the foot of each bed, sliding them under the sheets without disturbing the folds. The gesture is always done unseen. The heat will be discovered later, silently appreciated, or not at all. You return the now empty flannel wrappings to the warming room and check the time. Just past 9. That means it's nearly time for the last staff meeting, a quiet rundown with the housekeeper and butler. Tomorrow's schedule, visitors, special requests, who's on early coal duty, who's serving breakfast trays. You sit with the others on the long bench near the scullery. The ledger opens, names are read, tasks assigned. The housekeeper glances at you. Lady Marigold wants her winter slippers aired. You'll see to it. You nod. Of course. Then silence again. Not comfortable, not awkward. Just the stillness of people who know the rhythm too well. You return to your narrow room and light the tiny oil lamp. You take off your shoes with a soft grunt and sit on the bed, not quite lying down. Not yet. Your uniform is still on. You open the drawer beside you. Inside is a letter from your sister. From last week. You've read it 6 times. She's well. The baby is growing. They've gotten chickens. She asks how you are, and you wonder what to write back. Tired isn't enough. Alive is too much. You fold the letter again and set it aside. Outside, a nightingale sings. Inside, your lamp flickers. And for the first time all day, no one is calling your name. The oil lamp burns low, casting soft shadows that ripple against the stone walls of your small room. You sit for a while longer, not because there's anything else to do, but because lying down feels like surrender, and you haven't yet decided if you're ready for that. Outside, the house groans. Not loudly, just the kind of creaks and whispers a building makes when it's old and full of expectation. Somewhere above you, a floorboard creaks, followed by the distant rustle of a skirt or the soft murmur of a late conversation. The day is over for them. For you, not quite. There's still the night round. You pull your shoes back on, wincing at the ache in your toes. Your feet feel like they've been pressed into the shape of duty. You stand, stretch your arms carefully, too much movement, and the old wooden frame of your bed will creak like a snitch. Down the corridor, the night-round box is waiting. It's a small wicker basket filled with bits and bobs needed to set the house right before sleep. Lamp trimmers, candle snuffers, a soft rag for last-minute polishing, and a tiny vial of lavender oil for pillow spritzes, only in the guest rooms, of course. You begin upstairs, where the house now lies in twilight stillness. The gas lights are dimmed to their lowest. The air is cooler now, crisp and quiet, except for the occasional tick of a clock or the faint hiss of a lamp. In the guest room, the windows are closed, the bed tucked neatly, and the basin emptied. You dab the lavender oil onto the pillow, just as instructed. A gesture meant to convey luxury, intimacy, a kind of unseen care that feels both maternal and mechanical. A curious footnote. Many Edwardian hosts believed the scent of lavender helped guests sleep and ensured pleasant dreams free of indigestion. As if class anxiety could be erased with a few drops of flower oil. You continue down the corridor to the master bedroom suite. You don't go inside, not really. You stand in the dressing area, just long enough to confirm that everything is where it should be. Nightgown laid out, slippers angled just so, a small dish of mince left by the bed. You did that earlier. It's already been inspected. You move on. In the nursery, the children are finally, truly asleep. Their breathing is soft, rhythmic. You check that the covers are still in place, that the windows are closed against the chill. You adjust one blanket gently. The youngest murmurs something unintelligible and rolls over. You smile, just a little. Back in the hallway, you meet the night footman Thomas coming the other way with a small oil can. He's oiling the hinges tonight. You nod to each other, silent companions in this final ritual of the house's winding down. Library's done, he whispers. Only the parlour left. He nods and continues on, the scent of linseed trailing faintly behind him. You enter the blue parlour once again. It's empty now, the chairs vacant, the fireplace dying. A few coals still glow softly beneath the grate. You take the poker and stir them gently, then add a small log, just enough to keep it warm until morning. You glance around the room, at the faded wallpaper and the brass-framed photos on the mantel. Some of them are old, decades old. You wonder if the people in them ever considered the servants behind the scenes, or whether they thought the house just cleaned itself, meals appeared by magic, fires lit by wishes. There's a vase on the sideboard roses, mostly wilted. You remove the worst of the petals, fluff what remains. A kind deception. You dim the gas lights and exit the room, closing the door with a soft click. Back downstairs, you return the night-round basket to its shelf. The kitchen is dark now, save for the faint glow from the banked stove. The scullery cat curls in a basket by the back door, her breathing slow and even. She stirs as you pass, but doesn't move. Smart girl. You reach your room at last. You remove your cap, hang your apron. Your hands ache, your legs throb, and your shoulders feel like they've aged a century. You sit on the edge of the bed and slowly begin unpinning your hair. It falls forward like a curtain, limp from the long day. You rub your scalp gently, not because it helps, but because it's the only part of you no one else touches. A small box sits beneath your bed. Inside it, your other belongings. A photo of your mother. A pressed flower from the time you visited the fair. 2 letters folded and refolded so many times the edges are transparent. You don't look at them tonight. You just rest your hand on the lid. There's a moment of stillness. No bells. No footsteps. Just you. You lie back. The mattress is thin. The pillow a little flat. But it's yours. And for the next few hours, no one will ask you to fetch, to press, to smile, to vanish. You stare at the ceiling, where a crack runs like a lazy river through the plaster. It's shaped like a crooked crescent. You've traced it with your eyes so many times. You've begun to believe it tells a story. You close your eyes. Tomorrow, it starts again. But for now, you sleep. Morning arrives not with birdsong or sunlight, but with the screech of the bellboard jolting your body awake like a slap. You sit up so quickly your head spins. For a moment, you forget where you are, but the aching in your shoulders and the damp chill in the stone floor remind you, you're still here. The day has begun. You dress quickly, fingers fumbling with buttons that never get easier. The room is still dark. The only light is the glow of the oil lamp outside the corridor. Others are already moving soft steps, coughing, someone muttering about boots gone missing again. Your first stop, as always, is the scullery. The water hasn't been boiled yet. You light the stove with a practiced hand, stacking kindling like puzzle pieces, coaxing a flame from nothing. The warmth comes slowly, like a reluctant guest. The morning bell is for the kitchen. Cook once the oven's lit, the bread sliced, the table wiped, the jam pots unsealed, all before sunrise. She nods when she sees you. That's her version of good morning. You grab a basket and start slicing the day-old loaves. The bread is rough and resistant. Your knife isn't sharp. You've been meaning to trade it with Beatrice's, but haven't yet mustered the nerve. Maybe today. Soon the kitchen fills with noise, clanging pots, shouted orders, the thump of chopping. The scullery boy spills flour again. Cook explodes with noise. The cycle begins anew. Your hands work without your mind bread. Butter, wrap, tray, repeat. Today there are guests. 2 extra breakfast trays. That means extra silver, more eggs, more fussy requests like soft yolks, but not too soft, and toast browned at the edge, but white in the middle. You've long since learned how to read those instructions as riddles and hope your guesses are close enough. A quirky fact you overheard from the former second footman. One noblewoman insisted her toast be cut diagonally, claiming triangles were less hostile. She also believed square toast invited indigestion. She once blamed a stomachache on geometry. Breakfast prep ends with a flurry of teapots, folded napkins and trays arranged in symmetrical bliss. The footmen take them upstairs, gliding as if gravity doesn't apply to anyone in a waistcoat. You turn back to the fireplace scuttle. First coals of the day. You lug the blackened iron container toward the main stairwell. It's heavy, awkward, and already warm against your hip. You pass through the green baize door again and climb the servant stairs, counting steps under your breath just to stay conscious. At the top landing you pause. You have exactly 5 minutes to set 6 fires. You kneel in the morning room first. Crumple paper. Stack kindling. Lay coal just so. Strike match. Watch flame. Fan it gently. Close the grate. Move on. Each fire has its own personality. The nursery hearth is moody. The drawing room fussy. Lady Featherstone's fireplace likes to smoke if you don't stack the wood with care. You know them all. You have names for them. Not out loud, of course. You're halfway through the 4th when you hear footsteps light, clipped, unfamiliar. A guest. You step back just in time for a tall woman in pale silk to appear in the doorway. She glances at you as if surprised, then offers a polite nod. You curtsy. Thank you, she says softly. Then adds, it's warm already. You nod once, eyes lowered. You don't speak unless invited. She walks off. You blink. It's rare, being acknowledged so casually. Historians still argue whether the relationship between servant and guest was more relaxed or more strained than that with the household family. Guests were unpredictable. They didn't know the rules, but they assumed them. Still, a thank you is a thank you. You finish the last fireplace and return to the scullery to wash the soot from your hands. There's a smudge on your cheek. You wipe it with your sleeve, then realize your sleeve is worse. You pass Beatrice in the hallway. She's clutching a pile of damp towels and scowling. Guest used both towels and the tablecloth, she whispers. Don't ask how. You snort quietly. She continues, housekeeper's checking the silver. I'd disappear if I were you. End. You don't. You never do. But you brace yourself as you turn the corner. And there she is, the housekeeper, pacing slowly along the table, running her finger along each fork, each knife, like a schoolmistress searching for misbehavior. She doesn't look up, but she knows you're there. Napkins were folded poorly yesterday, she says without turning. Too stiff. Soften them today. You nod. You don't say that you weren't the one who folded them. It doesn't matter. The message has been delivered, and it sticks. She finally looks up. Lady Araminta's bed linens must be changed today. Her maid is ill. You'll do it. You nod again. A curious note. Some senior ladies of the house insisted on daily linen changes, believing that sleeping on the same sheet twice allowed the day's humours to return. Whether or not that's true, you now have to carry a full linen, set up 2 flights of stairs, and make a bed with hospital corners tighter than a corset. You fetch the linens from the press. They're warm from the iron, soft and faintly scented with lemon and lavender. You hug them to your chest like a bundle of clouds, then begin the long ascent again. In Lady Araminta's room you work silently. She watches from a chair by the window. You can feel her eyes on your back as you strip the bed, fold each corner, fluff each pillow. When you're done, she says nothing. But as you leave, she clears her throat. You didn't pull the hem tight enough. Aldun. You turn back, adjust the corner. She gives a single, satisfied nod. You leave the room and breathe deeply in the hallway, lungs heavy with linen scent and restraint. And then the bell rings again. Drawing room. Of course, you make your way toward the drawing room, with the practiced calm of someone who expects nothing good to come from it. It could be a forgotten cushion, a drooping flower, or worst of all, a guest in need of light conversation and a very cold sherry. The bell doesn't specify. It never does. Inside, the drawing room is flooded with light, filtered through sheer curtains that dance faintly in the morning breeze. Lady Marigold is seated near the window, arranging cards for her afternoon bridge game. Across from her is the guest you saw earlier, the one with the thank you. She's reading a slim book and sipping tea. Lady Marigold glances up as you enter. The fern is drooping, she says, as if the plant is personally trying to ruin her day. You walk over to the potted fern in question. Sure enough, the leaves have begun to curl slightly at the tips. Too much sunlight, not enough misting. You make a note to speak to the gardener. Again, you adjust the plant's position subtly, just enough to suggest improvement, without causing a noticeable change that might be blamed later. Then, from your apron pocket, you produce a small cloth and begin gently wiping the brass stand it sits on. Dust, like guilt, clings most where people never look. Have cook prepare lemon slices for tea, Lady Marigold adds without looking up. You nod and retreat. Historians still argue whether the psychological toll of servitude was rooted in physical labor or emotional obedience, the inability to say no, even to nonsense. You're certain it's both, because even when you're tired, you can keep going. But when you're spoken to like wallpaper, that's the true weight. Back in the kitchen, you relay the lemon slice order. Cook rolls her eyes. Didn't they just have breakfast? They did, you say. Then she can slice her own blasted lemons. I didn't. You blink. Cook sighs. Fine, I'll do it. But if I see one more tray come back untouched. You thank her and start arranging the tea set. Another tray, another balance act. This one with the good silver spoons. You carry it upstairs like it's a newborn. When you return to the drawing room, the guest looks up again. Thank you, she says, smiling. Lady Marigold does not. You leave them to their tea. You're sent to fetch the post next. The front door is off limits to you, of course, but the side hall has a small locked box where letters are delivered by a boy with quick feet and no interest in propriety. Today's stack is thick. Pale blue envelopes, heavy cream cards, and one thick parcel wrapped in twine. You sort them on the butler's table, where he will later announce them one by one as if presenting awards. One letter, addressed in shaky script, catches your eye. You recognize the surname Lady Featherstone's cousin, the one who writes on paper that smells of camphor and rosewater. She always sends gossip, thinly disguised as prayer requests. Back downstairs, the housekeeper intercepts you with a new order. The silver brushes have gone missing, she says. Missing, ma'am? Vanished. The drawer was open. Go find them. You nod and begin your investigation. The silver brushes, special cloth-padded tools for removing tarnish from silver without scratching, have a curious way of walking off. Usually, they're in the pantry. Sometimes, they wind up behind the coal scuttle. Once, you found one in the nursery, being used as a toy horsebrush. You check all the usual spots. No luck. Then, in the pantry, behind a basket of old candle stubs, you find both brushes, dusty but intact. You return them to the housekeeper without a word. She gives a slight nod. Be sure the footman polished the salvers before supper. You nod. The rest of the morning blends into itself, running laundry, checking towel stores, replacing a cracked chamber pot in the guest suite, you don't ask how, and comforting the scullery boy who dropped an egg and got yelled at by cook for the 5th time this week. A curious note. Some Edwardian households recorded the number of broken eggs and charged them to the kitchen boy's wages. No one here does that. Yet. But the threat hangs like steam over soup. After lunch service, you find 5 minutes to sit, just 5. You hide behind the scullery door with Beatrice, sharing a slice of cold bread and watching the cat try to murder a moth. She'll miss, Beatrice says. She never misses. You both watch in silence as the cat lunges and misses. You both smile. Then the bell rings. Again. Nursery. You groan softly and get up. Upstairs, the nanny greets you with a sigh. Someone wet the bed, she says. You strip the sheets and carry them down, trying not to breathe too deeply. The laundry room is already hot and wet with steam. The maid nods at you without speaking and hands you a fresh set of linens. You thank her with your eyes. By mid-afternoon, you've forgotten how many stairs you've climbed, how many cloths you've folded, how many times you've said, "Yes, ma'am," or "Right away." You catch a glimpse of yourself in the hallway mirror, pale, flat, hair tightly pinned, eyes quiet. And then you hear it, someone calling your name. Not a bell, a voice. You turn. It's the guest again. The woman in pale silk. She's standing in the hallway with her gloves in one hand, looking at you like she means it. "I forgot my shawl," she says. "Would you mind terribly?" You nod and fetch it. When you return, she thanks you again. "You're very good at your work," she says softly. You pause. It's the first genuine compliment you've heard in days. "Thank you, ma'am," you say, and for once you mean it. She smiles and disappears into the parlour. And for a few seconds, you just stand there alone in the hallway, holding nothing, doing nothing. And it feels like everything. The moment lingers, suspended like a dust mote in the afternoon sun. For just a breath of time, you exist without task, without motion, without being summoned. You stand still in the corridor, the shawl no longer in your hands, your name no longer echoing down the stairs. But then your ears catch a familiar sound, footsteps, heavy and even. The butler. You resume moving at once. He passes without speaking, but you feel his eyes. Not unkind, just watchful. He has his own burdens. His shoes gleam like polished stone. His jacket sits precisely on his shoulders, and his left cuff is always pulled a fraction tighter than his right. You've noticed. You notice everything. You return to the linen cupboard and begin folding napkins again more, always more. The supper service tonight will be formal. The guest is staying another day, which means fresh napkins, polished silver, swan-folded place cards, and that absurd hand-painted menu card that no one ever reads. You press each crease into the linen with care, folding them into sharp triangles. One corner out of place, and you'll be folding them all over again. The cook pokes her head through the doorway. "Game pies tonight," she announces, "and oysters." You nod. Oysters mean extra forks. Game pies mean extra gravy boats. You return to the silver pantry, where James is already sorting cutlery into rows, so neat they look like soldiers lined up for inspection. He sees you and groans. Lady Featherstone wants the small oyster forks again. She always wants the small oyster forks. He chuckles. She says the big ones are vulgar. You take a seat on the low stool and start polishing. Fork, spoon, knife. Fork, spoon, knife. The cloth squeaks softly against the metal. It's a rhythm you know too well. A curious detail. In some aristocratic households, the most frequently polished item wasn't silver, it was glass. Some houses kept glass maids, whose sole task was to polish crystal. You've done that before. Your hands were numb by the end. Today it's just forks. James leans closer. Guess who Lady Marigold wrote to last night? You raise an eyebrow. Her cousin in London, the one with the summer home and 3 Pekingese dogs. They're coming next week. You suppress a groan. He grins. Better find your best apron. You return the grin, weakly. The housekeeper sweeps through suddenly, ledger in hand. "Mary, drawing room flowers," she barks. You nod and set down your cloth. The flower room is cool and damp, a small tiled space that smells of green stems and wet petals. Buckets line the walls, roses, lilies, delphiniums, all grouped by colour and type. You select a new arrangement, soft pinks, ivory, and a touch of green for contrast. You clip the stems precisely, remove excess leaves, and arrange them in the tall blue vase Lady Marigold prefers. Back upstairs, you remove the old flowers and place the new ones with the slow care of someone handling emotion disguised as decoration. You rearrange one bloom, then another. It's beautiful, but you know she won't notice. You step back and leave the drawing room just as voices rise inside the family has gathered for tea. Their words are a blur of gossip, speculation, and long pauses filled with the sound of spoons clinking against china. Downstairs, you take a moment in the scullery. Beatrice is scrubbing a casserole dish like it insulted her family. Her hair is falling out of its bun, and her sleeves are wet to the elbows. "You look tired," you say. "I am tired," she replies. "We all are." She glances sideways. "But you look worse." You both laugh. The scullery cat wanders by and jumps into your lap. She kneads your apron a few times before curling into a sleepy comma. You stroke her absently, grateful for the warmth. "You ever think about leaving?" Beatrice asks quietly. You pose. "Sometimes," you say. "Where would you go?" You shrug. "I heard they need shop girls in York." Beatrice snorts. "They'd eat you alive." "Probably." You sit in silence for a while, the cat purring, the warmth of the kitchen seeping into your fingers. The window above the sink, glows with golden afternoon light. Then the bell rings. You both groan. This time it's the morning room. Again. Likely a spilled teacup or a missing shawl, or someone wanting to know what time the sun sets. You rise. The cat hops off, annoyed. You climb the stairs again, and the day's weight presses against your knees. Your muscles are sore, but your movements are precise, predictable. Inside the morning room, Lady Marigold is pacing. "There you are," she says, voice clipped. "The guest has requested a fire. Says the room is chilly." You nod. It's July. But you light the fire. As the kindling catches, she leaves the room. And for a moment, you sit beside the hearth, letting the flames warm your face. The fire crackles softly, and you imagine a cottage, a quiet one, somewhere far away from bellboards and aprons. Maybe there's bread in the oven. Maybe someone's playing a fiddle nearby. Just for a moment, you let yourself believe it's real. Then the fire flares. You rise, and you return to your tasks. By late afternoon, the house begins to shift. It's subtle, but you've grown attuned to the rhythm. The energy thickens like gravy in a pan. Guests linger longer in the drawing rooms. The men smoke slower. The women's conversations grow pointed behind fans and teacups. Supper looms. And with it, your real work begins again. The air smells faintly of roast and starch. From the kitchen, the scent of game pies, rich and heavy, spills into the corridors. You're back in the scullery folding linen napkins with crisp edges, so sharp you could shave a gentleman's moustache with them. The dining room must be perfect. Again. You load the sideboard with the Thursday silver, this time smaller soup spoons, the delicate dessert forks, and the absurdly thin-bladed fish knives. James, the second footman, lays out the glasses like a sommelier possessed. 7 glasses per setting, he mutters, pacing like a general before battle. 1 misalignment, and we're both polishing until morning. You smile faintly. "I'd rather get whipped than touch another flute." "Don't tempt me," he says, but without much bite. You both work quietly, arranging the place cards in gold-tipped holders. The menu is printed on cream cardstock. Potted prawns, game pie, steamed carrots, wine jelly, pear tart, cheese board. The cards are for show. Everyone knows what they're getting before they ask. You remember once hearing a fringe theory whispered by a visiting maid from another house that wealthy households used formal menus, mostly to discourage complaints. If the pudding turned out lumpy, well, it had been printed hours in advance. Too late now. The butler steps in and surveys the room with a furrowed brow. He adjusts the angle of a chair by half an inch. "There," he says. "Now it doesn't look drunk." You suppress a snort. Historians still argue whether such meticulousness in Edwardian homes was about decorum or quiet domination. You suspect it's simply what happens when people have nothing to do except enforce their preferences like commandments. You light the candles, 6 on the table, 4 more in the corner sconces. They must burn low and slow, not too much wax, not too little glow. You trim the wicks with the tiny golden scissors that are older than you. By the time the guests enter, you've already left the room, vanished. That's the rule. Dinner service begins. You hover just beyond the green baize door, listening. The conversation starts with politics, of course, then drifts to art, to a cousin's scandalous marriage, and finally to the weather. Edwardians were firm believers in the sanctity of discussing rainfall before dessert. The bell rings once, sharply. You and James spring into motion. You carry in the soup, hot, fragrant, served in bowls rimmed with gilded leaves. The guests nod, barely acknowledging your presence. You serve silently, moving like fog, footsteps hushed. Lady Featherstone requests the white wine, not the red. Lady Marigold wants less gravy this time. The guest, still in pale silk, thanks you again, her voice a soft lilt beneath the clink of silver. By the cheese course, the men are pink-cheeked and boastful, the women narrowed-eyed and amused. One of them drops a knife. It clatters loudly. You retrieve it, replace it with a fresh one, and disappear again. After the final course, coffee is requested in the drawing room. Your already prepared silver pot polished to a mirror finish, sugar lumps served in a porcelain bowl shaped like a seashell. You wonder who designs these things. While they sip and chatter, you return to the dining room to clear the aftermath. Crumbs, candle drippings, Stained napkins, lipstick prints on glasses. The room smells like the end of a performance, rich, tired, and vaguely burned. You begin scraping plates in the scullery. Beatrice is already elbow-deep in water, scrubbing as if salvation lies beneath the grime. "You missed the wine fiasco," she says. "What happened?" "Guests spilled on the rug. Red wine. Very red." You wince. "Housekeeper of kittens." She already did. 2. One still hissing. You both laugh quietly, the water sloshing between you. The scullery boy enters with a tray of untouched carrots. Cook sees it and sighs like the world has wronged her personally. "All that chopping," she mutters, "and not one soul said thank you." You think about the guest. The pale silk, the smile. "One did," you say. Cook looks at you. "Just one," you add. Cook grumbles something unintelligible and turns back to the pudding moulds. After the last dish is dried and the final teacup stacked, you sit briefly on the scullery bench. The warmth from the range soothes your back. Your fingers are pruny, your apron damp, your hair frizzing from the steam. Beatrice sits beside you. Neither of you speak. The scullery cat wanders in and curls up on the rag pile. Even she's done for the day. You check the clock. Almost 10. Not quite done. There's still coal to lay in the upstairs fires. Night trays to set out just in case someone wants water or a midnight apple. Slippers to realign. But you sit for 2 minutes more. Long enough to think about your sister's letter, about shop windows in York, about the time you watched a goose chase the gardener around the stable yard, about nothing in particular. And when the bell rings again, you rise, back straight, feet sore, and you carry on. The bell that summons you now is soft drawing room again. At this hour, it rarely means urgency. Likely a forgotten shawl, a cushion out of place, or someone asking whether tomorrow's breakfast will be poached or boiled. Still, you rise from the scullery bench, pat your apron dry, and begin the walk upstairs. Each step feels heavier than the last, the day folded into your legs like creases in linen. Your hands still smell faintly of onions and soap, but you tuck them behind your back as you pass the butler in the corridor. He nods briefly, barely. Inside the drawing room, the atmosphere has changed. Supper is over. The men have rejoined the women, and the conversation is languid, stretched out like a cat by the fire. The lamps are low, candles flicker. You notice someone has turned on the gramophone. A waltz, slow and syrupy, floats through the air like a forgotten memory. You pause just inside the door. Lady Marigold waves a hand, not even glancing your way. The fire is low. Do something about it. You nod and move to the hearth. The embers are red and sluggish. The logs nearly collapsed into ash. You poke at them gently with the iron rod, adding 2 small pieces of coal and a twist of newspaper from your apron pocket. Flames catch quickly, licking up the sides of the logs. The warmth grows. Behind you, the voices continue. "I do think Lord Pemberton has gone quite mad," someone is saying. "He tried to install electric lights inside the conservatory." "Ghastly," Lady Featherstone replies. "Imagine trying to grow orchids under such unnatural glare." You hide a smile. Somewhere in the world, a man is battling with wiring while these women whisper of orchid trauma. Historians often debate the pace of technological change in Edwardian homes. Some families rushed to adopt electricity and plumbing, while others clung fiercely to the glow of gaslight and the scrape of coal scuttles. Here, change comes cautiously. You still light most rooms by hand. The bellboard, not electricity, still runs the house. You finish with the fire and quietly return to the hallway. Only a few more tasks remain tonight. The upstairs corridor must be checked. The last of the boots polished, the water jugs refilled. You slip into the guest bedroom. It smells of lavender and starch. The bed has already been turned down, the pillows plumped just so. You replace the water jug beside the nightstand and straighten the lace doily beneath it. It's always crooked after the maid from the morning round. In the hallway, the air is cooler. The lamps along the wall flicker gently, casting long shadows beneath the ancestral portraits. Their painted faces, rigid with nobility, seem to watch your every move. You pass Lady Araminta's door. A soft rustle from within, perhaps turning a page. She reads late into the night. Often you find her room still lit when the rest of the house sleeps. You wonder if she remembers you're the one who changes her oil lamp each evening, who trims the wick so it burns smooth and steady. Your next stop is the boot room. It's a tiny, drafty space behind the kitchen, where each member of the family has their shoes lined up like trophies. Some are barely worn. Others are muddy from weekend hunts. You polish them all, even the child's riding boots, even the pair that hasn't been touched in months, but might be worn tomorrow. You use soft cloths, stiff brushes, and a little elbow grease. When you're done, each pair gleams like a lie. You glance at your own shoes, cracked at the toe, soles thin, not part of the shine parade. A quirky tradition you once heard. Some households had separate staff solely for shoe duty. Boot boys, they were called. You are, unfortunately, a boot girl, a dish girl, a fire girl, a flower girl, and a half-dozen other titles rolled into one. You return to the scullery to wash your hands. The basin water is cold now, the soap worn thin. Your reflection stares back from the metal pitcher, blurred and tired. Beatrice passes behind you, carrying a tray of clean glasses. "Still polishing?" she asks. You nod. Boots. Footmen get the credit. You do the work. Story of the house. She smiles, wan and crooked. It's nearly over, and it is. Just one more job. You carry a tray upstairs, a night tray for Lady Marigold. Inside, a glass of water, a slice of cold apple, and one of those chalky mints she insists on keeping near the bed. You knock gently. A pause. Enter. She's seated at her vanity, still in her evening gown, her hair unpinned, her face half-shadowed in the mirror. You set the tray on the stand. "Apple looks dry," she says. "It's fresh, ma'am." She says nothing more. You step back. She looks at you in the mirror. "Don't let cook burn the game pies again. It's such a dreadful smell." "Yes, ma'am." You leave the room and close the door quietly behind you. Back downstairs, the scullery cat stretches and yawns. You sit on the edge of your bed still dressed. Your shift is technically over, but it never really ends. You sleep beside your duties. You dream about trays and towels and fire pokers. A bell might ring at any moment. But for now, it doesn't. You lie back. The pillow smells of starch. The ceiling crack above you has darkened slightly with soot. Your hands rest on your stomach, nails trimmed short. You blink at the ceiling and try not to think. Tomorrow will be another copy of today. But tonight, at least you survived it. Sleep is never deep in the servants' quarters. It's thin, shallow, easily broken like the sound of rain against thin glass or the muffled creak of footsteps in the corridor. And tonight, like so many others, your rest is short-lived. It begins with a low metallic jingle, the bellboard again. You open your eyes. Darkness surrounds you. Your body aches. Your mouth is dry. Your mind protests. But your feet are already moving. You pull your boots back on. They never stay fully unlaced. That would be a luxury. You light your small lamp and shuffle into the corridor. Beatrice's door is still shut. The scullery boy snores faintly, but the bell's still ringing. You check the label. Nursery. You sigh. Up the stairs. Once again. At this hour, the house feels different, less like a machine and more like a sleeping beast. The walls breathe. The floorboards groan. Your own footsteps sound louder than they should. You hold your lamp low, casting long shadows along the stairwell. You reach the nursery and knock softly. The nanny opens the door, hair askew, eyes bleary. "Sorry," she mutters. The youngest is coughing again. You nod. You've done this dance before. You enter the dim room where the fire has burned low, casting a warm circle around the children's beds. The boy stirs in his sleep, his cheeks flushed. A cough rattles from his chest. You refill the water jug on the washstand, straighten his blanket, place a cool cloth on his forehead. It quiets, almost instantly. You're not a nurse, but you are what's available. The nanny exhales. "Thank you." You nod again, and leave. Historians still argue whether Edwardian servants were overworked out of necessity or tradition. The answer, you think, is simpler. No one cared to make it different. You are the wallpaper to their comfort. If something's broken, someone fixes it. And tonight, that someone is you. You descend the stairs again, slower now. In the lower hall, the cat is awake. She whines between your ankles, tail high. yellow eyes gleaming in the lamplight. You whisper her name, Maudie, and she purrs. You give her a scrap of bread from your apron pocket. She devours it like a royal feast, then vanishes into the dark. In the pantry, you check the hearth. Still warm. Good. You sit on the small wooden bench, cradling your lamp, and allow yourself to breathe. Only for a moment. Then another bell. You close your eyes, just for 2 seconds. Then you stand. This time it's the guest bedroom. You bring the lamp upstairs once again, your own reflection flickering in the hallway windows as you pass. You knock. No answer. You knock again. Finally, the door creaks open. The guest in pale silk, her hair down now, her eyes heavy with sleep, peers through. "I'm terribly sorry," she says. "The lamp went out. I didn't mean to wake anyone." You assure her it's no trouble. You step inside, relight her lamp, check the wick, adjust the airflow. She watches you with curiosity. "I've never stayed in a house like this before," she says quietly. "Everyone's so quiet." You smile. "That's the rule, ma'am." She sits on the edge of the bed, hugging a shawl around her shoulders. "What's your name?" You pose. "Mary." She nods. "I'll remember that." You doubt it. But you say thank you anyway. She smiles, then adds, "You must be so tired." "Hell," you offer the practiced answer. "We manage." But inside, the words taste heavy. She lets you go. You close the door behind you, the light behind her casting a glow that follows you down the hall. Back in the servants' quarters, your bed is still warm. You sit on the edge again, lace off your boots, press your fingers into your eyes. The crack in the ceiling above you now looks like a map. You trace it with your gaze down, across, then curling right. You wonder where it leads. You lie back, curl your legs toward your chest, and pull the rough blanket tight. And just as you begin to drift again, the bell rings. Of course it does. This time you don't even groan. You just breathe in, deep and slow, and exhale the dream you were about to have. Then you get up. The corridor is colder now. The oil lamp flickers more than it glows, casting uneven shadows that stretch and curl like fingers. Somewhere nearby, a floorboard pops. You hope it's just the house adjusting to the night, not someone else needing something else. You glance up at the bellboard. Master bedroom. That's rare. You straighten your posture instinctively. This bell carries more weight than others. When the master of the house calls at this hour, it's never a cushion or a candle. It's something heavier, something that rattles the air long after the bell stops ringing. Upstairs, the hallway outside the master suite is dim. The thick carpet muffles your steps. You knock twice, softly. The door opens, not all the way. Just enough for the butler to peer through, his expression unreadable. His voice is low. Master requests warm water and a cloth. Quickly. You nod and disappear. Downstairs again. The steps pass beneath you like echoes. You don't know what happened, and you won't ask. It's not your place to wonder. You boil water in the scullery kettle, pour it into a jug, wrap a cloth, and carry it upstairs on a tray. The door opens again before you knock. The butler takes it from your hands without a word. You retreat, the door closing behind you. Historians often write about the grandeur of Edwardian bedrooms, mahogany wardrobes, velvet bedspreads, gilded lamps with gaslight flickers. What they don't mention is what lies under all that polish. Gout, indigestion, fever, and the slow decay of inherited flesh. All tended to, silently, by hands like yours. Back downstairs, you pass through the dim corridors with the ease of someone who no longer needs light to navigate the world. You know every creak, every uneven floorboard, every hook where a spare apron waits. The scullery cat follows you now, silent as a second shadow. You sit on the bench by the stove and stare at nothing. It's nearly 3. In the quiet, you hear the house breathing. Not quite asleep, not quite awake. The fire in the kitchen hearth crackles softly, barely alive, as if it too resents being up this late. Beatrice wanders in, barefoot, hair loose. She sees you and stops. Bell again? You nod. She sits beside you, rubbing her eyes. "It's always the master bedroom," she murmurs. "When the gout's bad." You don't reply. You just hand her your mug of water, still warm from the kettle. She takes a sip. You both sit in silence for a while. You ever think they know how tired we are? She asks. Number. Do you think they care? You consider. Not in the way we'd want. She nods slowly. You both rise without speaking, slipping back to your rooms like ghosts returning to their graves. You lie down again. This time, you don't even pull the blanket over your shoulders. You just close your eyes and let the heaviness return. But sleep is shallow. It comes and goes like a draft through the corridor. At dawn, the real bell rings. Kitchen. You sit up. The sky is still dark, but the birds are beginning to stir. Outside, a faint blue-grey begins to stretch across the sky, like a slow yawn. You dress again. You're already in your uniform, still creased from the night. In the kitchen, Cook is already at the range, sleeves rolled, scowling at a pot of bubbling jam. Berries are sour, she mutters. Guests will complain, but they'll eat it anyway. You nod and begin to lay out the breakfast trays. Toast, jam, butter, eggs still soft from boiling, and the single slice of ham the gentleman insists on, even though he leaves it untouched. Every day. A fringe detail you learned once. Edwardian men believed protein in the morning gave them clarity of thought throughout the day. Clarity, of course, often meant feeling entitled enough to argue over paperweights and pheasant season. The bell rings again. You lift the first tray, balance it carefully, and start the climb. Each stair is an echo of yesterday's, and the day before, and the year before that. But at the top, landing, something different. A voice. The guest in pale silk. She's standing outside her room, already dressed, looking tired but pleasant. Good morning, she says. You blink. Good morning, ma'am. She hesitates. You're always the one I see. You nod. You work too hard, she adds, almost shyly. You don't know what to say to that. So you offer the smallest smile you can manage. Thank you, Mom. She nods and steps aside to let you pass. Down the hallway, Lady Marigold's door opens. The spell is broken. You serve breakfast. You fluff pillows. You open windows. And the day begins. Again. By mid-morning, the house has returned to its full, bustling rhythm. The bells chime more often now, each a separate tug on your attention, your muscles, your ability to be everywhere at once. You begin to feel the hours pile on like blankets in summer, suffocating but expected. First, it's Lady Featherstone requesting more ribbon for her embroidery. Then Lady Marigold wants the gramophone wound, and a different record selected something less emotional. A moment later, the housekeeper sends you to collect the drawing room curtains for laundering, which, of course, must be removed without disturbing the tassels. So much of your day is spent doing things no one notices until they're not done. That's the rule here. If it's visible, it's wrong. If it's invisible, it's right. As you're tugging the final curtain loose from its brass ring, you hear James muttering from the hallway. Gardner left the gate open again. Cook's threatening to report him. Again, you ask? He says it's the wind. I say it's the whiskey. You both chuckle. Quietly, always quietly. He adds, guest leaves today. You nod. The pale silk lady. You'd guessed as much. Her bags were packed neatly at the foot of the bed this morning, and her shoes polished to a mirror finish sat facing the door. That's how you can tell. Those who travel often always point their shoes outwards. Downstairs the scullery is full of steam. Beatrice is scrubbing the fish kettle, red-faced and muttering. Don't go near Cook today, she warns. She stabbed a potato. You raise an eyebrow. Fully skewered it, she says, and then left it in the sink like a warning. You believe her. You sidestep the kitchen and make your way to the laundry press. The drawing room curtains must be sent off with the next cart, or you'll be the one explaining their absence to the housekeeper. Inside the laundry room, the air is thick and wet. The iron clinks rhythmically, rising and falling like a heartbeat. You lay the curtains gently on the table and begin folding. They're heavier than they look, linen lined with velvet, stitched with decorative trim that tangles if you're not careful. You fold, press, repeat. A curious tidbit. Edwardian curtains were so elaborate that some required dedicated maids to maintain them in wealthier households. Those maids worked solely in the shadows of fabric. You, however, are a generalist curtains one moment, coals the next. You carry the bundle to the storage area and place it on the delivery shelf, just as the gardener enters, cheeks ruddy and boots caked with dirt. You seen Maudie? he asks, referring to the scullery cat. She was in the pantry last, you reply. She's taken one of the moles again. Left it on my wheelbarrow. Lucky you. She's thoughtful like that, he grins. You pass each other with a nod, the closest thing to affection allowed between servant roles at opposite ends of the house. You head toward the guest room one last time, to ensure it's ready for departure. The bed has been stripped, the wash basin cleaned. You fluff the pillows out of habit, even though no one will sleep in them tonight. The guest shawl still lies across the armchair. You fold it gently and place it beside her hat box. Then, you hear her in the hall. She's talking softly with the butler, her voice calm, pleasant. And please give my compliments to the girl with the quiet eyes, she says. Mary, I believe? You freeze. She's very good, the guest adds. The butler, ever unflappable, merely replies, Of course, madam. You retreat quickly, before she sees you lingering. In the scullery, you pretend to look busy. Beatrice glances up. What is it? Nothing. You're red. It's the heat. She smirks but doesn't push. You're called again this time to help prepare the drawing room for the afternoon sewing circle. The ladies are gathering. That means tea, cushions fluffed, a special bowl of sugared almonds placed exactly in the center of the side table. You've done it before. Many times. The silver tray is polished. The doilies are centered. The footstools arranged so no ankles are offended. As you place the almonds, you catch a glimpse of Lady Marigold entering the room, her shawl trailing behind her like a flag of minor royalty. Where's the green chair? She asks suddenly. You blink. The green chair, ma'am? Yes, the one with the tapestry cushion. I hate sewing in that striped monstrosity. You don't ask why it's your fault the green chair has gone missing. You simply nod curtsy and go find it. In the sunroom, of course. You heave it back, legs scuffing softly on the carpet, and position it exactly where it used to be. She sits without acknowledgement, which means it's perfect. Historians still argue whether Edwardian upper-class women clung to routine because of comfort or because it gave them control in a world that expected them to smile and nod through everything. You suspect it's both. Later, when the sewing circle has begun, you slip away and finally take a seat on the servants' bench in the corridor. James walks past, balancing a wine decanter on a tray. She said your name, he says. You glance up. The guest, he adds. She said your name. You nod. She's leaving now. You don't reply. But after the last bell has rung, after the shawls are folded, the sugar bowl covered, the footstools realigned, you pass through the front corridor just long enough to glimpse her departing carriage. She doesn't see you, but you see her. She lifts her hand to wave, perhaps to no one in particular, and you imagine, just for a second, that she waves for you. The guest is gone. No more soft silk gliding down hallways. No more late-night lamps to relight, or thank yous whispered in passing. Just the quiet hush that follows departure, the way a room feels once someone important has left it. You return to your rhythm. Back in the scullery, the dishes from the sewing circle arrive in stacked, ungrateful towers. Beatrice is already washing, shoulders hunched and jaw tight. You join her without a word, sliding into the rhythm of rinse, dry, stack. The water is warm, but already turning cloudy. You scrub a teacup with rosebud trim until it gleams. Bet she'll forget all about us by tomorrow, Beatrice says quietly. You shrug. She remembered my name. She said it. Doesn't mean she'll remember it. You don't argue. There's no point. Instead, you carry the cleaned cups to the pantry, wiping the shelves as you go. The porcelain clicks against the wood like a distant clock, marking time the way bells once did, softly, relentlessly. You catch sight of Cook in the kitchen, pacing like a lion. She's muttering about the fish delivery being late and threatens to gut the fishmonger herself if he ever forgets the parsley again. The kitchen boy pretends to sweep, but is clearly hiding behind the larder door. Cook spots him. Next time you try hiding, pick a room without a window, she shouts. You slip away before her wrath expands in your direction. Back upstairs, the drawing room is quiet again. The ladies have retreated to their boudoirs. Someone left a thimble on the armrest. You pocket it and place it in the sewing basket where it belongs. A cushion has been flattened. You fluff it. As you smooth the fabric, you pause. There's a faint indent where the guest once sat, already fading. You move on. The hallway clock strikes 4. Its chime rings like a sigh. You head toward the linen cupboard to prepare fresh towels for the guest room. Even though no guest is expected, the room must be reset. The chamber pot emptied. The bedspread brushed free of imaginary dust. You pass James in the corridor. "She's gone," he says. You nod. "She left a coin in the tray." You raise an eyebrow. "Shilling? For whoever cleaned her shoes." You blink. "That was you." James grins. "I took it, of course." You laugh. He pulls the coin from his pocket and presses it into your palm. You earned it. You stare at the small silver piece. It's heavier than expected. Not because of the metal, but because someone chose to give it to you. By name, even. You slip it into your apron pocket and say nothing. Downstairs, the wine pantry needs reordering. The butler is already there, pointing at bottles with a long, pale finger. "This was placed label out," he says, frowning. "It must always be label forward." You nod and fix it. He says nothing more. You reorder 2 more shelves in silence. He inspects the rest and finally nods. You're dismissed with the wave of one hand. In the servants' hall, a letter has arrived. It sits on the table, addressed in familiar script. Your sister's. You wait until you're alone to open it. "Mary, I hope you're well." Lizzie finally took her first steps straight into the cupboard. She's bruised but proud. "We miss you. The hens are laying better now that spring's come. I've been saving what I can. If you ever want to come home, there's a place here. I know it's not much, but it's yours if you want it. Rose." You fold the letter and press it to your chest for a moment. Then tuck it into the small box under your bed, between the pressed flower and the fading photo, just in case. You return to your duties, resetting the fires, restocking candles, tightening laces around bundles of linen. Each action keeps your mind from floating too far into impossible questions. At supper service, you carry the trays with steady hands. The dining room smells of lamb and garlic. The gentleman makes a joke about horses. Lady Marigold corrects someone's Latin. Lady Featherstone swirls her wine and says nothing at all. You pour the sauces. Refill the water glasses. You're invisible again. But tonight, it bothers you less. Later, when you descend to the scullery, Beatrice is already drying the pudding dishes. "You're smiling," she says. You glance up. "Am I?" She nods. You think of the guest, of the shilling in your pocket, of your sister's letter. You say nothing. But inside, something stirs, small, warm, stubborn. Hope, perhaps. The routine carries you forward. You rise early again, despite sleeping late, despite the ache in your knees that now seems permanent. The morning bell rings, and your body moves before your mind is fully awake. You tie your apron with mechanical efficiency, button your blouse with the speed of habit, and tuck your hair under your cap as though you've done it in your sleep, which, frankly, you might have. Today begins with breakfast trays. The orders haven't changed in years. Soft-boiled egg, dry toast, marmalade, tea, half lemon, hot water on the side. But today there's a new twist. The mistress wants a different tray cloth. Not a different tray, no, just the cloth. You pull 3 from the linen cupboard and examine them as if they might whisper the answer. Embroidered corners, whitework edging, or the one with tiny roses stitched into the hem. You gamble on the roses. The butler inspects it as you pass him in the hallway. "She's partial to blue this week," he murmurs. You pivot. Back to the cupboard. Swap the rose trim for the one with faint blue ribbon embroidery. You carry it up again and set it all in place. The breakfast arrives on time. The tea is hot. The eggshell cracks with just the right resistance. No complaint. Success. Historians still argue whether Edwardian servants were truly invisible, or if they simply became easier to ignore through obedience and uniformity. You wonder sometimes if invisibility isn't just a skill, a talent honed by repetition. You polish the hallway table next. The vase is already centered, but you shift it a quarter inch anyway. Just in case someone with a sharp eye is watching. Someone always is. By mid-morning, you're summoned to the upstairs sitting room. Lady Marigold is seated near the fireplace, a small book resting on her lap. She looks up as you enter. "I've decided to change my hairstyle," she says. You blink. "Yes, ma'am. My sister says my bun ages me. I want a softer look, something more continental." You nod again, already stepping forward. As her maid, You've done this before, brushed out her hair, pinned it back, teased it into waves, only to have it undone within the hour. You untwist the pins slowly, brushing through the dark waves with a boar bristle brush she swears by. She watches you in the mirror. "You're good at this," she says suddenly. "Thank you, Mom." End of chime. She squints at her own reflection. "You're very quiet. I suppose I appreciate that." "Yes, Mum." Then more softly, "It must be dull, this life. Always doing things for others." You pose, then resume brushing. "It has rhythm," you reply. She laughs just once. When the hairstyle is finished half up, pinned loosely, wisps around the face, she frowns, then tilts her head. "Better," she says. "More French." She waves her hand. You're dismissed. You return to the hallway, not quite sure whether to feel acknowledged or used. You settle on both. Downstairs, the scullery boy is on hands and knees, trying to retrieve a spoon that's fallen behind the dresser. Beatrice leans against the wall, arms crossed. "He's been down there 10 minutes, she says. "Might be a tunnel by now." You smile. He retrieves the spoon triumphantly. "It's sticky." "Worth it?" you ask. He shrugs. Cook would have noticed. And she would. Cook has been in a simmering mood all day. A veal roast went missing, or at least misplaced, and she's interrogating everyone like it's a military tribunal. "I didn't eat it," she says to the kitchen boy, "but if I had, I would have seasoned it better than you." You slip through the kitchen unnoticed and deliver the silver cutlery to the pantry for polishing. The afternoon brings a light rain. You're called to close the windows upstairs. The air smells clean, earthy, wet, green. The kind of rain that clings to the edges of everything. You stand for just a moment at Lady Featherstone's window, looking out across the lawn. The hedges glisten. The gravel paths swirl with puddles. You feel something flicker inside you. Longing? Maybe. Outside, the gardener trudges along the edge of the greenhouse, his coat soaked through. He glances up at the window, sees you, raises 2 fingers in salute. You raise your hand in return. Just a little. A few hours later, the bell rings again, Lady Araminta. You find her in her sitting room, scowling at a crossword puzzle. "I need a word for faint-hearted," she says. You blink. "Timid, perhaps?" She peers at you. "Yes. Yes, that fits. Good girl." You don't know why, but her approval warms you more than expected. Later still, while dusting the sideboard, you overhear the butler murmuring with the housekeeper. "The guest sent a letter," he says. "Left it for the girl. Your heart skips, then stumbles. The housekeeper frowns. "What girl?" He pauses. "Mary." You don't breathe for a moment. Then you return to polishing, pretending you didn't hear a thing. Hours pass. You lay fires, fold towels, mend a hem, empty a vase of wilted lilies, reset a chessboard no one has touched in weeks. But you keep thinking about the letter. Finally, near midnight, the housekeeper calls you aside. "This came," she says. She hands you the envelope, plain and unsealed. Inside is a card, and on it, in neat, slanted handwriting, "You're the only one I'll remember. Thank you for being real." No signature, just that. You fold the card slowly, press it flat between your palms, then tuck it into your apron, over your heart. And for the rest of the night, no matter how many bells ring, you walk taller. Morning breaks slow and silver. The rain has stopped. The sky outside is a pale, uncertain grey, the kind of light that makes brass glow softly and turns every window into a mirror. You wake before the bell this time. The letter still tucked in your apron pocket, as if it crept into your dreams and pulled you gently from sleep. You dress in silence. The others stir slowly. Beatrice yawning with a stretch that cracks her spine, the kitchen boy half tangled in his blanket on the cot. No one speaks yet. It's too early for words. In the hallway, the lamp flickers once and goes out. You don't relight it. The dawn is enough. The first bell comes at its usual hour. Kitchen. Cooks preparing Sunday breakfast, always a larger affair, always requiring 3 times the dishes for twice the criticism. The family expects poached eggs, hot muffins, smoked kippers, and fruit arranged by colour. Someone once complained that the strawberries were too aggressive next to the oranges. Cook nearly threw a cleaver. You begin prepping the trays. The eggs are stubborn today, slipping off the spoon with spite. You catch one mid-roll, barely saving the plate. Beatrice applauds silently from the breadboard. Lady Featherstone's awake. The kitchen boy mutters, glancing at the bellboard. You sigh. That's always a 5-task job, and at least one of them will be new, inexplicable, and strangely urgent. You carry her tray upstairs. It's heavier than usual, she's requested. Porridge, toast, and something called digestive cocoa, which sounds more like a remedy than a beverage. She's sitting up in bed when you enter, hair wrapped like a turban, newspapers scattered across her lap. Took long enough, she says. Did cook burn the toast again? No, ma'am. Miracles do happen. You set the tray down. She doesn't thank you, but she doesn't correct you either. That's enough. On your way back, you pass the housekeeper. Chapel this morning, she says. Set out gloves and umbrellas. You nod. Chapel days are odd. The entire house goes solemn for a few hours. Everyone pretends to feel holy. The servants prepare as usual, only now there's a time limit between prayers and roast lamb. You help lay out the family's gloves, soft leather, some with tiny pearl buttons. The master's umbrella is worn at the handle, the rubber tip slightly chewed. You polish it anyway. In Lady Marigold's dressing room, she frowns at the rain-streaked window. Do you think it will clear by noon? I'm not sure, ma'am. I hate wet air. Makes my hair sullen. Yes, ma'am. You pin her curls into place and pretend not to hear her muttering that she should have married a man from Spain. She says this every other Sunday. By mid-morning, the house empties. The family leaves for chapel in 2 carriages, each gliding down the drive like elegant insects. The butler sees them off. You and Beatrice watch from the side window. Think they confess? She asks. Only to gossip, you reply. She smirks. Lady Araminta probably prays to live 1 year longer than her sister just out of spite. God might grant that, then regret it immediately. With the family gone, the house exhales. You have just under 90 minutes to reset everything, lay the table for lunch, polish the glassware, replace flowers, sweep carpets, change linens in the guest bathroom in case someone decides to return for tea. All before the bells begin again. You move quickly, efficiently. In the drawing room you pause to straighten the photographs on the mantel. The smallest one, Lady Marigold as a child, serious-eyed, wearing shoes she clearly hated, has tilted again. You fix it. Always you. You adjust the candelabra by 1 degree, fluff a footstool cushion, then disappear before anyone can see. Back downstairs, the cat has returned. She sits in your chair in the servants' hall, tail tucked, paws folded like royalty. You sit beside her. Just a minute. You pull the card from your apron and reread it. You're the only one I'll remember. Thank you for being real. A small, impossible truth grows in your chest. Someone saw you. Not just your uniform, not just your folded napkins or your scuttled coals. You. The weight of it makes your eyes burn. You tuck the card away just as the bells begin again, like a symphony returning to its motif. You rise. Cook barks from the kitchen. The roast needs basting. The wine needs decanting. The chairs must be re-angled around the table, because someone decided to host a surprise luncheon after chapel. You and James race through the dining room, shifting settings like stagehands at an opera. Why do they always eat when they feel religious? He asks. Because guilt is best served with gravy, you reply. He snorts. By the time the carriages return, you're already back behind the green baize door, invisible again. The roast is perfect. The silver gleams. The candelabra flickers with obedient light. You listen to the laughter, the small talk, the clink of forks against bone china, and you breathe in the stillness behind it all. You made this moment, and no one will ever say so. But you know, Sunday evenings are slower, but not gentler. The energy shifts not because the household rests, but because it expects comfort. That's more difficult to deliver than firewood or toast. Comfort is invisible and exact. A cushion placed just so, slippers warmed by the hearth, a lamp lit early, but never too early. You begin the evening round with lamps. You carry the oil can and trimming scissors, visiting every room like a quiet priest. Snip the wick, top the oil, adjust the chimney. Each lamp must glow steadily, not too bright, not too low. Flicker, and you'll hear about it. You make your way through the hallways, past the ancestral portraits. Their painted eyes follow you as always, suspicious of your footsteps, indifferent to your sweat. You stop to realign a crooked frame. It's the one with the hunting dog and the stern uncle no one ever mentions. You can't explain why you care. But you do. In the drawing room, Lady Featherstone is half asleep beneath a paisley throw, one slipper dangling from her foot. A novel rests open on her chest. You quietly adjust the fire with a long poker, adding just enough coal to maintain the warmth without waking her. As you move to leave, she mumbles something. You pause. Mother's brooch. You lean closer. Ma'am? She doesn't answer. You slip out, letting the door hush behind you. Back in the scullery, the cat has caught another mouse. She places it ceremoniously on a clean tea towel. Beatrice looks at it, grimaces, and tosses the whole arrangement mouse, towel, pride into the bin. She's proud, she says. But she ruins everything she loves. You raise your eyebrows. That a mouse? Or someone else? Beatrice smirks. Take your pick. You both laugh softly. Then the bell rings. Library. You sigh and head up. The library is dim. The gas lamps are lit low, and the master is seated at his desk, spectacles perched at the end of his nose. He doesn't look up. Whiskey, he says. You retrieve it from the sideboard. 2 fingers, no ice. Just how he always takes it. You place it beside his right hand. Clean these, he adds, gesturing at a stack of ashtrays. You gather them without reply. The scent of stale smoke clings to your apron. As you turn to leave, he says, Quiet night. Yes, sir. You step into the hallway and take your time returning. The servants' quarters feel oddly peaceful tonight. Maybe it's the rain, which has returned, tapping gently against the windows. Or maybe it's that letter still pressed to your chest. Down in the laundry, the washerwoman has left a pile of mending. You sit on a low stool and begin to sew. A ripped hem, a missing button, a torn pillowcase, likely from a hasty tug of war over bedtime comfort. As you stitch, you hum softly, a lullaby your sister used to sing to her daughter. You close your eyes for a moment and picture the baby's curls, the sound of hens, the way the wind sounded at home, real home, not this endless corridor of creaking expectations. Historians still argue whether Edwardian servants stayed out of pride, duty, or lack of options. Truth is, sometimes you stay for one reason and realize years later that it became something else. Your fingers move automatically. Needle in, pull, loop, knot. The fabric tightens. You finish the stack just as Beatrice returns with a stack of firewood. Parlour needs relighting, she says. Want to flip for it? You grin. Heads, I win. Tails, you do it. Cheek. You take the bundle from her arms anyway and head off. In the parlour, Lady Araminta is seated by the window, sketching the outline of a tree. You kneel and stoke the fire quietly. She doesn't acknowledge you until the fire catches. Then she murmurs, without looking up, That's better. You nod and step back. Before you leave, you glance at her sketch. It's beautiful. Stark lines, aching branches, a sense of loneliness that feels too familiar. You draw well, you whisper. She glances up. Not for you to say. You flush and step out. Downstairs again, the hours wind toward night. You clean the ashtrays, wipe the boot rack, refill the matchboxes. At 11:10, the final bell rings master bedroom. Water for shaving tomorrow, that's all. You carry it up with a straight back, every step measured. You place it on the stand, bow your head, and walk away before he can speak again. At last, you return to your cot. The blanket is scratchy. The ceiling crack is still there, a little longer now. The cat hops up beside your feet, curls once, and settles. You reach under your pillow and pull out the letter one more time. You're the only one I'll remember. Thank you for being real. You read it until the ink blurs with your breath. Then you press it to your chest again and close your eyes. Not dreaming, just remembering. Your eyes open before the bell. It's still dark early enough that the moon hasn't finished its shift. A thin blue-grey glow pushes through the window cracks, soft as breath. You sit up slowly. The cot creaks beneath you. The cat stretches, yawns, and hops down without ceremony. Even she has a schedule. You dress in near silence. The day begins like all the others. Except it doesn't feel like all the others. There's something in the air today. A pause. A question. It's your anniversary. Not of birth. Not of arrival. Just your time here. 8 years since your name was first written in the servant ledger. 8 years of bells and basins, tray cloths and trimmed wicks. You step into the corridor and breathe it in. The house is still asleep. You take the long way to the kitchen, past every window you love. The one with the ivy. The one that rattles. The one that gives a perfect view of the east garden when the sun rises, though you rarely get to watch it properly. In the scullery, Beatrice is already at the sink, humming tunelessly. She doesn't look up. Eggs first, she mutters. Then coffee. Then complain about both. You nod. As it has always been. She glances over, surprised. You sound like a priest. Maybe I've been here too long. You planning something? You shrug. She narrows her eyes. Don't go getting dreamy on me, she says. That's when people disappear. You smile, but it lingers in your chest. The breakfast trays are heavier than usual today. Maybe you notice it more. Your arms tremble slightly as you carry the second tray upstairs. Lady Featherstone opens the door herself, unusual. Ah, she says. You set the tray down. Good, she says. That means it won't be cold. You nod and turn to go. You've been here some time now, haven't you? You pose. Yes, Mum. Reliable girl. You nod again, unsure whether it's a compliment or a warning. In the hallway, the butler passes you with a note in hand. His eyebrows rise slightly. You're to report to the housekeeper after breakfast, he says. You blink. Why? He doesn't answer. Just continues down the corridor, steps precise as ever. You carry on with your duties, clearing the drawing room, dusting the banister knobs, folding the fresh linen napkins that no one ever truly sees. But in your chest, a flutter. At the appointed time, you knock on the housekeeper's office door. She doesn't look up right away. She's tallying the linen count, scrupulously checking off each line in her thick brown ledger. Finally, she glances up. I received a letter, she says. You stand still. It seems our recent guest. She doesn't need to say who has written to Lady Featherstone. Your breath stops. She's requested that, should a position ever open in her household, you be considered. Recommended. She used the word irreplaceable. The room tilts. The housekeeper studies you. What have you to say about that? You manage to breathe. I didn't know she'd do that. Well, she did. Silence. You'd be leaving here, she adds, not unkindly. Different rules. Different place. You nod. I told her you're reliable. Quiet. Capable. Your voice is small. Thank you. She closes the ledger. No one will stop you, she says. You'll have to write a letter. Formal application. But she'll likely take you. Oh? You stand there for a moment too long. Long enough that the housekeeper adds, Well? Don't just stand there like a broom. You curtsy, quickly, and go. That night, after supper has been cleared and candles trimmed and all the day's final bells have rung, you sit in the servants' hall with a single sheet of paper. Beatrice leans over your shoulder. Leaving? Maybe. She nods. Don't forget us. I couldn't. Write your sister too. I will. Send jam. I won't. She smiles and walks away. You dip the pen into ink and write. Your name, your intentions, your history in the house. The skills you've practiced into invisibility. The way you know how to read a face before it scowls. How to carry a tray without rattling the cup. How to stay and still feel the difference between duty and regret. When you finish, you sign it. Mary Elspeth Green. You blow gently on the page. Let the ink dry. You'll send it in the morning. But for now, you walk the halls once more, just once slowly. The chandeliers glimmer above. The carpets hush your steps. The same portraits hang in place. The same window rattles. But it feels different now. Because maybe, just maybe, you're not only a servant. Maybe you're someone a guest remembered. Someone who might leave this house and not return. You reach your cot at last. The cat curls at your feet, and you close your eyes. The fire is still warm, the bell is quiet, and your world, for the first time in years, feels wide open. Now let's slow down. You can leave Mary where she is now, at the edge of something new. Let her slip softly into the quiet of that imagined morning, the pages of her letter folded with care, the future gently unfolding beyond the horizon of candlelight and corridors. Let your own shoulders loosen. Let your thoughts melt like wax. The footsteps of the household fade. The bells go silent. The halls settle into stillness. You're safe here. You've wandered through dusty parlours and firelit sculleries, and now you can return from that quiet world beneath the stairs. The weight of aprons, the echo of boots on stone, the hush behind the green baize door, all of it can drift away now, like steam from a kettle left gently to whistle. Let your breath slow. Let your thoughts grow soft and round and quiet. Sleep will come, like it always does, unnoticed at first. Then total, absolute, healing. You're not needed anymore tonight. Close your eyes and rest.